Ve'ele Shemoth, and these are names, the second book of Moses, called Exodus. Chapter 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came to Mitzrayim. Each man and his household came with Yaakov: Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehudah, Yisachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All those who were descendants of Yaakov were 70 persons, for Joseph was in Mitzrayim already, and Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new sovereign over Mitzrayim, who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, Look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they become large. And if it comes to be, in the event of war, that they also join our enemies and fight against us, and so go up out of the land. Therefore they set taskmasters over them, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. So the Mitzrayim made the children of Israel serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, in brick, in all manner of service in the field. All their service in which they made them serve was with rigor. Then the sovereign of Mitzrayim spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When you do the duties of a midwife for the Hebrew women, and see them on the birthstones, if it be a son, then you shall kill him, but if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Elohim, and did not do as the sovereign of Mitzrayim commanded them, but rescued the male children alive. So the sovereign of Mitzrayim called for the midwives, and said to them, Why have you done this thing, and rescued the male children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not like the Mitzrayim women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them. Therefore Elohim dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very mighty. And so it was, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he provided households for them. So Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, Every son who is born he shall cast into the river, and every daughter he shall save alive. Please note that before Pharaoh made the decree, this decree wasn't just made by Pharaoh. He had called his advisors, and his advisors were the ones who gave him the advice of different things. And of these three advisors, Balaam was one of them. Ayub, who known as Job, was another one, and Jethro was a third advisor. Jethro did not advise to kill the children of Israel, but the person that advised to kill the children of Israel by drowning was the man known as Balaam, or Balaam. End note. Chapter 2. And the man of the Beit of Levi went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Abrahu's children. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Abrahu women, that she may nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. So the young maid went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." And the woman took the child and nursed him, and the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and she became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the Ma'im." Now it came to pass in those days, when Musa was grown, that he went out to his brethren, and looked at their burdens, and he saw a Mitzri beating an Abrahu, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Mitzri and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 Abrahu men were fighting, and he said to the one who did the wrong, "Why are you striking your companion?" And he said, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Mitzri?" And Musa feared and said, "Surely this thing is known." When Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Musa, but Musa fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the Kohen of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew Ma'im, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Then the shepherds came and drove them away. But Musa stood up and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today?" And they said, "A Mitzri rescued us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough Ma'im for us and watered the flock." So he said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him, that he may eat lachem." Then Musa was content to live with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Musa. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land." Now it happened in the process of time that the sovereign of Mitzrayim died, and the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry came up to Elohim because of the bondage. So Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzhak, and with Yaakov. And Elohim looked upon the children of Israel, and Elohim considered their plight. Please take note that the Egyptian that was killed by Moses was trying to rape a Hebrew woman, and that is why Moses protected the woman and killed the Egyptian, as rabbis suggest, by using the sacred name of Yahweh. And he buried him in the sand by uttering the sacred name. This was an act of kindness on Moses' part. Jethro is the same man who was an advisor to Pharaoh before he was rescued, and he believed in the God of Israel. The marriage of Moses to Zipporah did not happen overnight. Moses was held prisoner by Jethro for 10 years before he was freed. He pulled the rod out of his garden with the name of Yahweh that Jethro had planted, and had said, "Whoever will pull it out of the ground will marry my daughter." This story of Moses can be read in the scroll of Yashar, known as Jasher, the compendium edition to the Torah from African Israel. End note. Chapter 3. Now Musa was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the Kohen of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the wilderness, and came to Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. And Malach Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Musa said, "I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn." And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to look, Elohim called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Musa, Musa." And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not draw near to this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is set apart ground." Moreover, he said, "I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Yaakov." And Musa hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And Yahweh said, I have surely seen the pain of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their affliction. So I have come down to rescue them out of the hand of the Mitzrayim, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amori, and the Perzi, and the Huvi, and the Yebusi. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Mitzrayim oppressed them. Come now, therefore, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Mitzrayim. And Musa said to Elohim, Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim? And he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you, that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Mitzrayim, you shall serve Elohim on this mountain. And Musa said to Elohim, Indeed, when I come to the children of Israel, and say to them, The Elohim of your Avot has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And Elohim said to Musa, Ahaya Asher Ahaya. And he said, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, Ahaya has sent me to you. Moreover, Elohim said to Musa, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, Yahweh, Elohim of your Avot, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Yaakov has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together, and say to them, Yahweh, Elohim of your Avot, the Elohim of Abraham, of Yitzhak, and of Yaakov, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen what is done to you in Mitzrayim. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Mitzrayim to the land of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amori, and the Perzi, and the Huvi, and the Yebusi, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will hear your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the sovereign of Mitzrayim, and you shall say to him, Yahweh Elohim of the Abrahu has met with us, and now please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh our power. But I know that the sovereign of Mitzrayim will not let you go, no, not even by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I will do in its midst, and after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Mitzrayim, and it shall be, when you go, that you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask of her neighbor, namely of her who dwells near her bait, articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and you shall plunder the Mitzrayim. Chapter 4. Then Musa answered and said, But suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say, Yahweh has not appeared to you. So Yahweh said to him, What is that in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. So he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Musa fled from it. Then Yahweh said to Musa, Reach out your hand and take it by the tail. And he reached out his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. That they may believe that Yahweh Elohim of the Avot, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Yaakov has appeared to you. Furthermore, Yahweh said to him, Now put your hand in your bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous like snow. And he said, Put your hand in your bosom again. And he put his hand in his bosom again, and drew it out of his bosom. And behold, it was restored like his other flesh. Then it will be, if they do not believe you, nor heed the message of the first sign, that they may believe the message of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these 2 signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take Maim from the river, and pour it on the dry land, and the Maim which you take from the river will become blood on the dry land. Then Musa said to Yahweh, O Yahweh, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And Yahweh said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I, Yahweh? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say. And he said, O Yahweh, please send by the hand of whomever. Start again. And he said, O Yahweh, please send by the hand of whomever else you may send. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Musa, and he said, Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well, and look, he is also coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. And you shall speak to him, and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth, and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. And he shall be your spokesman to the people, and he himself shall be as a mouth for you, and you shall be to him as Elohim. And you shall take this rod in your hand, with which you shall do the signs. So Musa went and returned to Jethro his father-in-law, and said to him, Please let me go, and return to my brethren, who are in Mitzrayim, and see whether they are still alive. And Jethro said to Musa, Go in shalom. And Yahweh said to Musa in Midian, Go return to Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead who sought your life. Then Musa took his wife and his sons, and set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Musa took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahweh said to Musa, When you go back to Mitzrayim, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand, but I will strengthen his heart, so that he will not let the people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus says Yahweh, Israel is my son, my Bechor, firstborn. And I say to you, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, indeed, I will kill your son, your Bechor. And it came to pass on the way at the encampment that Yahweh met him, and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone, and cut out the foreskin of her son, and cast it at Musa's feet, and said, Surely you are a husband of blood to me. So he let him go. Then she said, You are a husband of blood, because of the circumcision. And Yahweh said to Aaron, Go into the wilderness to meet Musa. And he went, and met him on the mountain of Elohim, and kissed him. And Musa told Aaron all the words of Yahweh, who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Musa and Aaron went, and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken to Musa, and he did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed. And when they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked on their affliction, then they bowed their heads and paid homage. Please take note that the people that Yahweh spoke to, the two people, one was Aaron, one was Moses. They were both from the tribe of Levi. Aaron being the high priest, the commandment that was given was that Yahweh will always speak to the Levites, and they will be the mouthpiece of Yahweh, as it is this day. Also notice that Yahweh had given a number of miracles that could not be performed by every magician out there. So one could perform the miracle of creating a serpent, but they could not perform the miracle of creating blood out of water. So therefore there were certain miracles that were more powerful than others, and they were prevalent at the time in Mitzrayim. Hence why it was important to give a miracle which others could not perform to validate that this was the living Elohim. And note. Chapter 5. Afterward Musa and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, Who is Yahweh, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, nor will I let Israel go. So they said, The Elohim of the Abrahu has met with us. Let us go 3 days, journey into the wilderness, and sacrifice to Yahweh our power, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. Then the sovereign of Mitzrayim said to them, Musa and Aaron, Why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your labor. And Pharaoh said, Look, the people of the land are many now, and you make them rest from their labor. So the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, You shall no longer give the people straw to make brick, as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And you shall lay on them the quota of bricks, which they made before. You shall not diminish it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry out, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our power. Let more work be laid on the men, that they may labor in it, and let them not regard false words. And the taskmasters of the people and their officers went out, and spoke to the people, saying, Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go get yourselves straw where you can find it, yet none of your work will be reduced. So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Mitzrayim to gather stubble instead of straw. And the taskmasters forced them to hurry, saying, Fulfill your work, your daily quota, as when there was straw. Also the officers of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and were asked, Why have you not fulfilled your task in making brick both yesterday and today as before? Then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, Why are you dealing like this with your servants? There is no straw given to your servants. And they say to us, Make brick, and indeed your servants are beaten, but the fault is in your own people. But he said, You are idle, therefore you say, Let us go and sacrifice to Yahweh. Therefore go now and work, for no straw shall be given you, yet you shall make the quota of bricks. And the officers of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble, after it was said, You shall not reduce any bricks from your daily quota. Then as they came out from Pharaoh, they met Musa and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. And they said to them, Let Yahweh look on you and judge, because you have made us abhorrent in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to kill us. So Musa returned to Yahweh and said, Yahweh, why have you brought trouble on this people? Why is it you have sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, neither have you rescued your people at all. Chapter 6. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand he will let them go, and with a strong hand he will drive them out of his land. And Elohim spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Yahweh, and I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, the mighty power. But by my name, Yahweh, was I not known to them. I have also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, in which they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Mitzrayim keep in bondage, and I am mindful of my covenant to bring it to pass. Therefore say to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrayim, and I will rescue you from their bondage, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. And I will take you as my people, and I will be your power, and you shall know that I am Yahweh your power, who brings you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrayim, and I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and I will give it to you as an inheritance. I am Yahweh. And Moshe spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they would not heed, because of anguish of spirit and cruel bondage. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Go in, speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, that he must let the children of Israel go out of his land. And Moshe spoke before Yahweh, saying, The children of Israel have not heeded me. How then shall Pharaoh heed me? For I am without eloquence. Then Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aaron, and gave them a command for the children of Israel, and for Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim. These are the heads of their ahavots: Batim, the sons of Reuben, the Bechor of Israel, Hanuch, Pallu, Chetzron, and Carmi. These are the mishpachot of Reuben, and the sons of Shimon, Yemuel, Yamin, Ohad, Yakin, Zochar, and Shaul, the son of Canaanite woman. These are the mishpachot of Shimon, and these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years. The sons of Gershom, Livni, and Shimi, according to their mishpachot. And the sons of Kohath, Amram, Ishari, Hebron, and Uzziel. And the years of the life of Kohath were 133 years. Therefore the sons of Merari, Mehali, and Mushi, these are the mishpachot of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took for himself Yehovad, the daughter of his father's brother, as wife, and she bore him Aaron and Musa. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And the sons of Yeshari, Korach, Nepheg, and Zichri. And the sons of Uzziel, Mishael, Elzaphan, and Zithri. And Aaron took to himself Elisheva, daughter of Aminadab, sister of Nachshon, as wife, and she bore him Nadav, Avihu, Eliezer, and Ithamar. And the sons of Korach, Asir, Elkanah, and Aviasaph. These are the mishpachot of the Korahites. And Eleazar, Aaron's son, took for himself one of the daughters of Putiel as wife, and she bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the Ahavot, of the Levim, according to their mishpachot. These are Aaron and Moshe, to whom Yahweh said, Bring out the children of Israel from the land of Mitzrayim, according to their armies. These are the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring out the children of Israel from Mitzrayim. These are the same Moshe, Aaron. And it came to pass on the day when Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the land of Mitzrayim, that Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, I am Yahweh, speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, all that I say to you. And Moshe said before Yahweh, Behold, I do not have eloquent speech, and how shall Pharaoh heed me? Also notice over here that when Yahweh is about to judge Mitzrayim, he speaks as Elohim. Whenever Elohim speaks, that means he is ready to judge. That means he is now a judging Elohim. Therefore, mercy is very sparse at that point. But every time the phrase that is mentioned, Ani Yahweh, I am Yahweh, and he refers to Israel and the people, the children of Israel, at that point, Yahweh is showing mercy. So the two phrases coincide with judgment and mercy. Please note, in verses 20 of this chapter, we are told that Amram took Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife. Notice that in the Torah, in Leviticus chapters 18 verse 14, it says that you shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother. In other words, the father's brother's wife. Which then goes to clarify, you shall not approach to his wife, she is your aunt. here we see that Amram did take his aunt as wife. A lot of rabbis wrestle with this verse and come to various inaccurate, faulty conclusions, such as that the Torah maybe wasn't given at the time of Amram. Therefore, this relationship might have been permitted beforehand, was taken away later. Or many will go to say that this was a distant cousin, a distant sister, maybe even a distant aunt. None of those answers are correct. It is correct to say in the Hebrew, as it says over here, V'yichach Amram et Yocheved dodato lo li'isha, that Amram took Yocheved, his auntie, by the way. Dodato, doda, feminine noun, means an aunt. So he took his father's sister to wife, or a better way to put it, his aunt, because it doesn't say in the Hebrew his father's sister. It says dodato, Yocheved dodato lo li'isha. Simply it says that he took his aunt, and the text is accurate in the Hebrew, and that's what it says, and that is the law. Under circumstances of plural marriage, in the Hebrew Jewish law, it is permitted for doing a Levirate marriage. This is the classical Levirate marriage. The Levirate marriage is done to a brother, a brother's or dead brother's wife, a widow. In this case, what we notice, it says that the father's sister to wife. So therefore, one line can pass, and you can still take a woman to be your wife, even your aunt, in a situation where the husband has died of that particular aunt. Therefore, she is no longer seen in the situation of an aunt, and situation changes completely. The law changes, and this is something that many people wrestle with, but it is in fact our law, the Torah, that is written, and it shows that Amram, a Hebrew scholar of the highest caliber, knew what he was doing. Law permitted him. Therefore, rightfully so, there is no need to look for excuses to make it sound like he did something wrong when he didn't. The case in point is of Judah and Tamar having a relationship when Tamar was technically the daughter-in-law of Judah. But because her husband had died, therefore she was permitted in a Levirate marriage to Judah. End note. Chapter 7. And Yahweh spoke. Start again. And Yahweh said to Musa, See, I have made you a mighty one to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother shall be your Navi. You shall speak all that I command you, and Aaron your brother shall speak to Pharaoh, that he must send the children of Israel out of his land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. But Pharaoh will not heed you, that I may lay my hand on Mitzrayim, and bring my armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Mitzrayim by great judgments. And the Mitzrayim shall know that I am Yahweh, when I stretch out my hand on Mitzrayim, and bring out the children of Israel from among them. And Musa and Aaron did as Yahweh commanded them, so did they. And Musa was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old, when they spoke to Pharaoh. And Yahweh spoke to Musa and Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, Show a miracle for yourselves, then you shall say to Aaron, Take your rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. So Musa and Aaron went into Pharaoh, and they did so, just as Yahweh commanded, and Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh, and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men, and the sorcerers, and the magicians of Mitzrayim. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. For every man threw down his rod, and they became serpents, but Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. And he made Pharaoh's heart hardened, and he did not heed them as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Musa, Pharaoh's heart is hard. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning when he goes out to the Maim, and you shall stand by the river's bank to meet him. And the rod which was turned to a serpent you shall take in your hand. And you shall say to him, Yahweh Elohim of the Abrahu has sent me to you, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness, and indeed, till now you would not hear. Thus says Yahweh, By this you shall know that I am Yahweh. Behold, I will strike the waters which are in the river with the rod that is in my hand, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that are in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the midstream will loathe to drink the Maim of the river. Then Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, Say to Aaron, Take your rod, and stretch out your hand over the Maim of Mitzrayim, over their streams, over their rivers, over their ponds, and over all their pools of Maim, that they may become blood. And there shall be blood throughout all the land of Mitzrayim, both in vessels of wood and vessels of stone. And Musa and Aaron did so, just as Yahweh commanded, and he lifted up the rod, and struck the Maim that were in the river, in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of his servants, and all the Maim that was in the river was turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank, and the midstream could not drink the Maim of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians of Mitzrayim did so with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them as Yahweh had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his baith, neither was his heart moved by this. And all the midstream dug all around the river for Maim to drink, because they could not drink the Maim of the river. And 7 days passed after Yahweh had struck the river. Please take note. We notice over here that Yahweh declares that he will cast his judgments upon Egypt. Yahweh only uses one word to describe the plagues he is about to send upon Egypt. He does not describe every judgment in details. Likewise, as it is for the faithful and the people who are right ruling, who are righteous, Yahweh will also give them great benefits in this world for those who obey the Torah, and in the world to come. And Yahweh does not describe the benefits he will give, but it just says that we will be satisfied. It means that there will be many, many great benefits ahead. Many great signs and wonders will be shown ahead in the world to come for those that are faithful. We also notice that here Yahweh also describes himself as Yahweh against the Egyptians, in which there's a description saying that Yahweh is actually showing mercy to the Egyptians as well. He doesn't want to kill all the Egyptians, so he's showing mercy to them as well. Notice also that there were many streams that came out of the river Nile, and these were all small streams that were supplying the fields of the Mitzrayim. And when Yahweh had asked Moses to turn the river into blood, then every stream would also be turned into blood. Therefore, none of these waters would be any use to the Egyptians. And note, chapter 8. And Yahweh spoke to Musa, Go to Pharaoh, and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all your territory with frogs. And the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly. We shall go up and come into your baith, into your bedroom, on your bed, into the baith of your servants, on your people, into your ovens, and into your kneading bowls. And the frogs shall come up on you, on your people, and on all your servants. Then Yahweh spoke to Musa, Say to Aaron, Stretch out your hand with your rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up on the land of Mitzrayim. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the Maim of Mitzrayim, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs on the land of Mitzrayim. Then Pharaoh called for Musa and Aaron and said, "Petition to Yahweh that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may sacrifice to Yahweh." And Musa said to Pharaoh, "Accept the respect of saying, when I shall intercede for you, for your servants, and for your people, to destroy the frogs from you and your bathing houses, that they may remain in the river only." And he said, "Tomorrow," and he said, "Let it be according to your word, that you may know that there is no one like Yahweh our power. And the frogs shall depart from you, from your bathim, from your servants, and from your people, they shall remain in the river only." Then Musa and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Musa called out to Yahweh concerning the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Musa, and the frogs died out of the bathim, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together in heaps, and the land smelled bad. But when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart, and did not heed them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Musa, "Say to Aaron, stretch out your rod, and strike the dust of the ground, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Mitzrayim." And they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and struck the dust of the ground, and it became lice on man and beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. Now the magicians so worked with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice on man and beast. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of Elohim." And Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, just as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Musa, "Rise early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water, and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, let my people go, that they may serve me. Or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you, and your servants, on your people, and into your bathim. And the bathim of the midstream shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. And in that day I will set apart the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, in order that you may know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the land. And I will make a difference between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall be. And Yahweh did so, and thick swarms of flies came into the bait of Pharaoh, into his servants Bathim, and into all the land of Mitzrayim. The land was ruined because of the swarms of flies. And Pharaoh called for Musa and Aaron, and said, Go, sacrifice to your power in the land. And Musa said, It is not right to do so, for we would be slaughtering the ritual impurity of the Mitzrayim to Yahweh our power. If we sacrifice the abomination of the Mitzrayim before their eyes, then will they not stone us? We will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to Yahweh our power, as he will command us. And Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to Yahweh your power in the wilderness, only you shall not go very far away. Intercede for me. And Musa said, Indeed, I am going out from you, and I will intercede to Yahweh, that the swarms of flies may depart tomorrow from Pharaoh, from his servants and from his people tomorrow. But let Pharaoh not deal deceitfully any more in not letting the people go to sacrifice to Yahweh. And Musa went out from Pharaoh and interceded on his behalf to Yahweh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Musa. He removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. Not one remained. And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go. Please note, the first plague of blood was cast by Aaron, the high priest, not by Moses. The reason, because the water was going to become blood. Moses was protected by the water when he was a baby, as he was put in bulrushes in a little basket and put into the water. Therefore, he was receiving protection. And so therefore, Yahweh could not have Moses curse the very item that had given him protection. So there is a lesson to learn in this. For those that give you favor, those that benefit you, you do not curse those people down. You do not put them down, otherwise it will come back upon you. The other thing we learn from this is that one of the questions that is asked is, how did the people of Israel knew to sacrifice themselves in the name of Yahweh, or to have themselves killed for their faith if needed be? As we see at the time of Nebuchadnezzar, when the 3 Hebrews were to be cast into the furnace that Nebuchadnezzar has raised up because they would not bow down to his statue. How did they know to allow themselves to be killed in the name of Yahweh? We are told that they learned this trait from the frogs, because the frogs were willing to sacrifice their lives for the name of Yahweh by jumping into the ovens where they were roasted. Hence why the same thing was learned by the servants of Yahweh, the children of Israel, who were faithful to Yahweh. Therefore, we also notice that Yahweh tells us that He makes a difference between the children of Israel and between the Goyim, the Gentiles. He keeps His people safe. Those that obey His Torah, those that walk in His commandments, statutes, and judgments, they will always be safe. And those that don't will not have the safety and the security of the Torah. So this is another thing very, very important. And note. Chapter 9. Then Yahweh said to Musa, Go in to Pharaoh and tell him, Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of the Abrahu, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, behold, the hand of Yahweh will be on your cattle in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the oxen, and on the sheep. There will be a very severe pestilence. And Yahweh will make a difference between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Mitzrayim, and nothing shall die of all that belongs to the children of Israel. Then Yahweh set an appointed time, saying, Tomorrow Yahweh will do this thing in the land. And Yahweh did this thing on the next day, and all the livestock of Mitzrayim died. But of the livestock of the children of Israel, not one died. And Pharaoh sent, and indeed not even one of the livestock of the Israeli was dead, and the heart of Pharaoh became hard, and he did not let the people go. So Yahweh said to Musa and Aaron, Take for yourselves handfuls of ashes from a furnace, and let Musa scatter it toward the Shemaim in the sight of Pharaoh, and it will become fine dust in all the land of Mitzrayim, and it will cause boils that break out in sores on man and beast throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. And they took ashes from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Musa scattered them toward Shemaim, and they caused boils that break out in sores on man and beast. And the magicians could not stand before Musa because of the boils, for the boils were on the magicians and on all the Mitzrayim. And Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not heed them, just as Yahweh had spoken to Musa. And Yahweh said to Musa, Rise early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh, and say to him, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of the Abrahu, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For at this time I will send all my plagues to your very heart, and on your servants, and on your people, that you may know that there is none like me in all the earth. Now I will stretch out my hand, and strike you and your people with pestilence, and you shall be cut off from the earth. And indeed for this purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name may be declared in all the earth. As yet you exalt yourselves against my people, in that you will not let them go. Behold, tomorrow about this time I will cause a very heavy hail to rain down, such as has not been in Mitzrayim since his founding until now. Therefore send now, and gather your livestock, and all that you have in the field. For the hail shall come down on every man, every animal, which is found in the field, and is not brought home, and they shall die. He who feared the word of Yahweh among the servants of Pharaoh made his servants and his livestock flee to their batim. But he who did not regard the word of Yahweh left his servants and his livestock in the field. And Yahweh said to Musa, Stretch out your hand toward the Shemaim, that there may be hail in all the land of Mitzrayim, on man, on beast, and on every herb of the field throughout the land of Mitzrayim. And Musa stretched out his rod toward the Shemaim, and Yahweh sent thunder and hail, and fire darted to the ground, and Yahweh rained hail on the land of Mitzrayim. So there was hail and fire mingled with the hail, very heavy, but there was none like it in all the land of Mitzrayim, since it became a nation. And the hail struck throughout the whole land of Mitzrayim, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail struck every herb of the field, and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, there was no hail. And Pharaoh sent and called for Musa and Aaron, and said to them, I have transgressed this time. Yahweh is right ruling, and my people and I are wicked. Intercede to Yahweh, that there may be no more mighty thundering and hail, for it is enough. I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. And Musa said to him, As soon as I have gone out of the city, I will spread out my hands to Yahweh. The thunder will cease, and there will be no more hail, that you may know that the earth is Yahweh's. But as for you and your servants, I know that you will not yet fear Yahweh Elohim. Now the flax and the barley were struck, for the barley was in the head, and the flax was in bud. But the wheat and the spelt were not struck, for they are late crops. And Musa went out of the city from Pharaoh, and spread out his hands to Yahweh, and the thunder and the hail ceased, and the rain was not poured on the earth. And when Pharaoh saw that the rain, the hail, and the thunder had ceased, he continued to transgress, and he hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hard, neither would he let the children of Israel go, as Yahweh had spoken by Musa. Please note, as you notice how Moses prayed, he lifted his hands and spread them apart, and prayed for Mitzrayim, for these plagues to stop. This was the ancient mode of prayer. End note. Chapter 10. Now Yahweh said to Musa, Go into Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, that I may show these signs of mine through him, and that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's son the mighty things I have done in Mitzrayim, and my signs which I have done among them, that you may know that I am Yahweh. And Musa and Aaron came into Pharaoh, and said to him, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of the Abrahu, How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Or else, if you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts within your borders, and they shall cover the face of this land, so that no one will be able to see the land, and they shall eat the residue of what is left, which remains to you from the hail. And they shall eat every tree which grows up for you out of the field. They shall fill your batim, the batim of all your servants, and the batim of all the Mitzrim, which neither your Ahvoth nor your grandfathers have seen, since the day that they were on the earth to this day. And he turned and went out from Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh's servant said to him, How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the men go, that they may serve Yahweh the Elohim. Do you not yet know that Mitzrayim is destroyed? And Musa and Aaron were brought again to Pharaoh, and he said to them, Go serve Yahweh your power. But who are the ones that are going? And Musa said, We will go with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and our herds we will go, for we must hold a Chag, the appointed celebration time, with Yahweh. Then he said to them, Yahweh had better be with you when I let you and your little ones go. Beware, for calamity is ahead of you. Not so. Go now, you that are men, and serve Yahweh, for that is what you desired. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. And Yahweh said to Musa, Stretch out your hand over the land of Mitzrayim for the locusts, that they may come upon the land of Mitzrayim and eat every herb of the land, all that the hail has left. So Musa stretched out his rod over the land of Mitzrayim, and Yahweh brought an east wind on the land all that day and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. And the locusts went up over all the land of Mitzrayim and rested on all the territory of Mitzrayim. They were very severe. Previously there had been no such locusts as they, nor shall there be such after them, for they covered the face of the whole land, so that the land was darkened. And they ate every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the Etzim, which the hail had left, and there remained nothing green on the Etzim, or on the plants of the field, throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. Then Pharaoh called for Musa and Aaron in haste, and said, I have transgressed against Yahweh your power, and against you. Now therefore please forgive my transgression only this once, and plead to Yahweh your power, that he may take away from me this death only. So he went out from Pharaoh and interceded to Yahweh, and Yahweh turned a very strong west wind, which took the locusts away and blew them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the borders of Mitzrayim. But Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the children of Israel go. Then Yahweh said to Musa, Stretch out your hand toward the Shemaim, that there may be darkness over the land of Mitzrayim, darkness which may even be felt. And Musa stretched out his hand toward Shemaim, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Mitzrayim 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Then Pharaoh called to Musa and said, Go serve Yahweh. Only let your flocks and your herds be kept back. Let your little ones also go with you. And Musa said, You must also give us sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh our power. Our livestock also shall go with us. Not a hoof shall be left behind. For we must take some of them to serve Yahweh our power, for we do not know with what we must serve Yahweh until we arrive there. But Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. Then Pharaoh said to him, Get away from me, take heed to yourself, and see my face no more. For in the day you see my face, you shall die. And Musa said, You have spoken well. I will never see your face again. Take note that in this episode, Pharaoh, when he asked for forgiveness, that is, commanded a transgression against God, he first says to Moses that he's not only committed a transgression against God, but he has also committed a sin against Moses as well. So the very first thing he does, when he speaks in verse 16 and says that I have transgressed against Yahweh, your power, and against you. Therefore, please forgive my transgression only this once. So he first asked for forgiveness to Moses, and then he asked forgiveness to Yahweh, our power. The process that is shown reveals that when you have committed a transgression against somebody else, to another human being, you must go to them first and seek forgiveness and restitution before you come to God, because if you don't do it in this process, your transgression will still stand. You cannot come to God for forgiveness until you have gone to the offended party. That is a process and the procedure, and restitution must be made. End note. Chapter 11. And Yahweh said to Musa, I will bring yet one more plague on Pharaoh and on Mitzrayim. Afterward he will let you go from here, When he lets you go, he will surely drive you out of here altogether. Speak now in the hearing of the people, and let every man ask from his neighbor, and every woman from her neighborhood, articles of silver, articles of gold. And Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Mitzrayim. Moreover, the man Musa was very great in the land of Mitzrayim, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Musa said, Thus says Yahweh, about midnight I will go out into the midst of Mitzrayim, and all the Bechor in the land of Mitzrayim shall die, from the Bechor of Pharaoh who sits on his throne, even to the Bechor of the female servant who is behind the handmill, and all the Bechor of the animals. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Mitzrayim, such as was not like it before, nor shall be like it again. But against none of the children of Israel shall a dog move its tongue, against man or beast, that you may know that Yahweh does make a difference between the Mitzrayim and Israel. And all these your servants shall come down to me, and bow down to me, saying, Get out, and all the people who follow you. After that I will go out. Then he went out from Pharaoh in great anger. And Yahweh said to Musa, Pharaoh will not listen to you, in order that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Mitzrayim. So Musa and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the children of Israel go out of his land. Please note that Yahweh here tells us that there is a difference between the children of Israel and the Gentiles. Here in verse 7, the Gentiles are described as a dog, which is a euphemism for a person of non-Israelite faith. Hence why those of Israel who obey the voice of Yahweh, keep his Torah, his instructions, his statutes, his commandments, his judgments, will not be like the rest of the nations, and will be raised up high and be benefited and increased greatly. And note, chapter 12. Now Yahweh spoke to Musa and Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, saying, This month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, On the 10th day of this month every man shall take for himself a lamb according to the bayith of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his bayith take it according to the number of the persons, according to each man's need. You shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it at twilight. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts and on the lintel of the batim where they eat it. Then they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire with matzah, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with mayim, but roasted in fire, his head with his legs and his entrails. And you shall let none of it remain until morning, and what remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire. And thus you shall eat it with a belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is Yahweh's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Mitzrayim on that night, and will strike all the Bechor in the land of Mitzrayim, both man and beast, and against all the powers of Mitzrayim I will execute judgment. I am Yahweh. And the blood shall be a sign for you on the batim where you are, and when I see the blood I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Mitzrayim. And this day shall be for you for a memorial, and you shall guard it as a hag, appointed celebration time, to Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall guard it as a hag by an everlasting ordinance. 7 days you shall eat matzah, unleavened bread. Even the first day you shall remove chametz, leaven, from your batim, houses. For whoever eats chametz, lachem, From the first day until the seventh day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. And on the first day there shall be a set-apart assembly, and on the seventh day there shall be a Mikra Kodesh for you. No manner of work shall be done on them, but that which everyone must eat, that only may be prepared for you. And you shall observe Hag HaMetzot, the feast of unleavened bread. For on this same day I will have brought your armies out of the land of Mitzrayim. Therefore you shall guard this day throughout your generations as an everlasting ordinance. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat matzah until the 21st day of the month at evening. 7 days no chametz shall be found in your batim, for whoever eats what is chametz, that same person shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is a foreigner or a native resident of the land. You shall not eat chametz in all your dwellings. You shall eat matzah. Then Musa called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, Pick out and take lambs for yourself according to your mishpachot, and kill the Passover lamb. And you should take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin, and none of you shall go out of the door of his bayit until morning. For Yahweh will pass through to strike the Mitzrayim, and when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts, Yahweh will pass over the door, and not allow the destroyer to come into your batim to strike you. And you shall observe this thing as an ordinance for you and your sons forever. And it will come to pass, when you come to the land which Yahweh will give you, just as he promised, that you shall keep this service. And it shall be, when your children say to you, What do you mean by this service? That you shall say, It is a Passover sacrifice of Yahweh, who passed over the batim of the children of Israel in Mitzrayim, when he struck the Mitzrayim and rescued our households. And the people bowed their heads and paid homage. Then the children of Israel went away, and did as Yahweh had commanded Musa and Aaron, so they did. And it came to pass that at midnight Yahweh struck all the Bechor in the land of Mitzrayim, from the Bechor of Pharaoh, who sat on his throne, to the Bechor of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the Bechor of livestock. And Pharaoh rose in the night, he, all his servants, and all the Mitzrayim. And there was a great cry in Mitzrayim, for there was not a beth where there was not one dead. Then he called for Musa and Aaron by night, and said, Rise, and go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go, serve Yahweh as you have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and be gone, and increase me also. And the Mitzrayim urged the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We shall all be dead. And the people took their dough before it was chametz, having their kneading bowls bound up in their clothes on their shoulders. And the children of Israel had done according to the word of Musa, and they had asked from the Mitzrayim articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. And Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Mitzrayim, so that they granted them what they requested. Thus they plundered the Mitzrayim. Then the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides children. A mixed multitude went up with them also, and flocks and herds, and a great deal of livestock. And they baked matzah, cakes of the dough which they had brought out of Mitzrayim, for it was not chametz, because they were driven out of Mitzrayim and could not wait, nor had they prepared provisions for themselves. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who lived in Mitzrayim was 430 years. And it came to pass, at the end of the 430 years, on that very same day, it came to pass that all the armies of Yahweh went out from the land of Mitzrayim. This is a night of much observance to Yahweh for bringing them out of the land of Mitzrayim. This is a night for Yahweh, a solemn observance for all the children of Israel throughout their generations. And Yahweh said to Musa and Aaron, This is the ordinance of the Passover. No foreigner shall eat it, but every man's servant who is bought for money, when ye have circumcised him, then he may eat it. A ger toshav, foreigner, and a hired servant shall not eat it. In one bath it shall be eaten. You shall not carry on the flesh outside the bath, nor shall you break one of its bones. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a foreigner dwells with you, and wants to keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males perform Brit Milah, circumcision, and then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as a native of the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat it. One Torah shall be for the native born, and for the foreigner who dwells among you. Thus all the children of Israel did, as Yahweh commanded Musa and Aaron, so they did. And it came to pass on that very same day that Yahweh brought the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim according to their armies. Please note that we have been given one Torah law for everyone, including us and the foreigners. We are told explicitly in this particular Parsha and book that we are to observe the Passover forever, wherever we live. Now the details have changed according to Halakha. We don't always sacrifice a whole lamb or a goat. In some congregations it is customary to put a bone. In others it is customary to slaughter a whole lamb if there's enough people to finish it, as it is not permitted to allow the meat that is left over to stand the next sunrise. So therefore, in this particular book we are also instructed that our new year begins in the month of Passover, which is called Aviv or Nisan. It is also noted that our secular new year begins what is called Rosh Hashanah in September/October time period. Also notice here that the formular conversion to the way to Judaism wasn't any creed or any oath. All that the person had to do was get circumcised and accept the God of Israel, and they were fully converted in. And note, chapter 13. Then Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, Set apart to me all the Bechor, whatever opens a womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine. And Musa said to the people, Mention this day in which you went out of Mitzrayim, out of the bait of bondage, for by strength of hand Yahweh brought you out of this place. No chametz lachem shall be eaten. This day you came out in the month Aviv. Then it shall be, when Yahweh brings you into the land of the Canaani, and the Hitti, and the Amori, and the Huvi, and the Yevusi, which he swore to your oath to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat matzah, and in the 7th day there shall be a Chag, celebration to Yahweh. Matzah shall be eaten 7 days, and no chametz lachem, leavened bread, shall be seen among you, nor shall chametz be seen among you in all your quarters. And you shall tell your son in that day, saying, This is done because of what Yahweh did for me when I came up from Mitzrayim, and it shall be as a sign to you on your hand, and for a remembrance between your eyes, that the Torah of Yahweh may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand Yahweh has brought you out of Mitzrayim. You shall therefore keep this command in its appointed time from year to year. And it shall be, when Yahweh brings you into the land of the Canaani, as he swore to you, and your Avoth, and gives it to you, that you shall set apart to Yahweh all that opens the womb, and every Bechor that comes from an animal which you have. The males shall be Yahweh's, and every Bechor of a donkey you shall redeem with the lamb, and if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck. And all the Bechor of man among your children you shall redeem. So it shall be, when your son asks you in time to come, saying, What is this? That you shall say to him, By the strength of his hand Yahweh brought us out of Mitzrayim, out of the bait of slavery. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh was stubborn about letting us go, that Yahweh killed all the Bechor in the land of Mitzrayim, both the Bechor of man and the Bechor of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to Yahweh all males that opens the womb, being males, but all the Bechor of my children I redeem. It shall be as a sign on your hand, and as frontlets between your eyes. For by strength of the hand of Yahweh brought us out of Mitzrayim. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Elohim did not lead them by way of the land of the Plashtim, although that was near. For Elohim said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Mitzrayim. But Elohim led the people around by way of the wilderness of Sea of Reeds, and the children of Israel went up in orderly ranks out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Musa took the bonds of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under solemn oath, saying, Elohim will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bonds from here with you. And they took their journey from Succoth, and camped in Etham, at the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, to go by day and night. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day, or the pillar of fire by night, from before the people. Please take note that several things in these passages that enlighten us that we are to keep the Passover ceremony according to the commandments of our elders, and of course the commandments of Yahweh that were passed down to our elders. We are to keep those commands. The priesthood is central in this. They are to instruct in how these commandments are to be kept in our different states of dispersion, or even people that are within the land of Israel. This is very, very important. We also note that within this commandment we are told that we must guard the Torah at all times. It will be a sign on our hand and as a frontlet between our eyes. Many rabbis interpret this to mean that the males are to wear tefillin on their arms and on their foreheads, whilst some may not see that as a tefillin, but sees as a different sign of memorizing, studying the Torah, etc. We are also told here that the people that came out of Egypt, that they were not people that wanted to go to fight war. They were people who were peaceful. They wanted to live a peaceful life. Therefore, they did not desire to go warring with nations. So all the wars that Israel fought as Israel was coming out were defensive wars to defend themselves and defend their lives. This is very, very key, because today many such people who ascribe themselves to Israel want to fight a war and kill innocent people. That is not the way of Israel, and these are probably not Israelites either. Also notice that within this we are instructed that what is the Bechor, the firstborn, and what is not, and how certain things are to take place. In verse 19, we are told that Musa took the bones of Joseph with him, but it does not give you the details of where the bones of Joseph were. Joseph's coffin was hidden away by the Mitzrayim, and nobody knew where it was. Even Moses did not know where the coffin was. At that point, Sirach, the daughter of Asher, who was a very wise woman, she was able to tell Moses that the coffin was put into the river Nile and hung down there so that nobody would detect it in a casket of some kind of a metal, which is believed to be lead. And so therefore Moses went into the river, took the coffin out, was able to procure the body of Joseph. Notice also that the Egyptians believed the Nile to be their god, or one of their gods, because if you notice that whilst Moses was instructed to go to Pharaoh, he would always come out in the morning to the river, and that's when he would worship before the river, and they treated it as a god. And hence why that is where Yahweh, the true God, the true El, was able to send his messenger and command regarding judgments to come. This is very, very pertinent. Another question arises, which is, if the bones of Joseph or the dead body of Joseph was carried by the Israelites, wouldn't they all become unclean, as is commandment and custom that somebody who touched a grave or a dead body would be unclean for 7 days? So this is something that is pertinent and to be understood, that Joseph's body would have to be kept at a distance of 75 feet or greater, and only the people within the 75-foot range would be unclean. And note. Chapter 14. And Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, Speak to the children of Israel that they turn and camp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea opposite Baal-zephon. You shall camp before it by the sea. So Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, They are confused by the land. The wilderness has trapped them in, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, so that he will pursue them, and I will gain respect over Pharaoh and over all his army, that the Mitzrayim may know that I am Yahweh. And they did so. And it was told the sovereign of Mitzrayim that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot, and took his people with him. And he took 600 choice chariots, and all the chariots of Mitzrayim, with captains over every one of them. And Yahweh hardened the heart of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, and he pursued the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with boldness. But the Mitzrayim pursued them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army, and overtook them camping by the sea, besides Pi-hahiroth, before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Mitzrayim marched after them, and they were extremely afraid. And the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh, and they said to Musa, Because there was no graves in Mitzrayim, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us, to bring us up out of Mitzrayim? Is this not the word that we told you in Mitzrayim, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Mitzrayim? For it would have been better for us to serve the Mitzrayim than that we should die in the wilderness. And Musa said to the people, Do not be afraid, stand still, and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Mitzrayim, whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. Yahweh shall fight for you, and you shall hold your shalom. And Yahweh said to Musa, Why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. But lift up your rod, and stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I, indeed, will harden the hearts of the Mitzrayim, and they shall follow them, and I will gain respect over Pharaoh and over all his army, his chariots and his horsemen. And the Mitzrayim shall know that I am Yahweh, when I have gained respect for myself over Pharaoh, his chariots and his horsemen. And the Malach Elohim, who went before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud went before them and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Mitzrayim and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and darkness to the one, and it gave light by night to the other, so that the one did not come near the other all that night. And Musa stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the Maim were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry ground, and the Maim were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. And the Mitzrayim pursued, and went after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass in the morning watch that Yahweh looked upon the army of the Mitzrayim through the pillar of fire and cloud, and he troubled the army of the Mitzrayim. And he took off their chariot wheels, so that they drove them with difficulty. And the Mitzrayim said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for Yahweh fights for them against the Mitzrayim. And Yahweh said to Musa, Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the mine may come back upon the Mitzrayim, on their chariots and on their horsemen. And Musa stretched out his hand over the sea, and when the morning appeared, the sea returned to its full depth, and the Mitzrayim fled into it, and Yahweh overthrew the Mitzrayim in the midst of the sea. And the mine returned and covered the chariots, the horsemen, and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. Not so much as one of them remained, but the children of Israel had walked on dry land in the midst of the sea, and the mine would have rolled to them on their right hand and on their left. So Yahweh rescued Israel that day out of the hand of the Mitzrayim. And Israel saw the Mitzrayim dead on the seashore. Thus Israel saw the great work which Yahweh had done in Mitzrayim. And the people feared Yahweh and believed Yahweh and his servant Musa. Please take note, as the scripture repeats twice, that when Yahweh had split the sea, it was not as you see in the movies, that the water on both sides congealed like ice and stopped. And then there were pathways made in the sea. The book of Yashar says that 12 pathways were made, and each tribe was able to cross between those pathways. And even if you just believe in a single pathway, Israel was able to cross through the single pathway and able to get safely on the other side. And note. Chapter 15. Then Musa and the children of Israel sang this song to Yahweh and spoke, saying, I will sing to Yahweh, for he has lifted up his arm. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. Yah is my strength, and Shir, song. And he has become my Yeshua, salvation, rescue. He is my El, the power, and I will Hallel, praise him, my father's Elohim, and I will exalt him. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he has cast into the sea. His chosen captains also are drowned in the sea of reeds. The depths have covered them. They sank to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has become glorious in power. Your right hand, O Yahweh, has dashed the enemy in pieces. And in the greatness of your excellence, you have overthrown those who rose against you. You sent forth your wrath, which consumed them like stubble. And with the blast of your nostrils, the waters were gathered together. The streams of water stood upright like a heap. The depths froze in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My desire shall be satisfied on them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, Yahweh, among the Elim powers? Who is like you, great in splendor and set apart to receive reverence and praises, doing amazing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You in your loving kindness have led forth the people whom you have redeemed. You have guided them in your strength to your set-apart habitation. The people will hear and be afraid. Sorrow will take hold of the inhabitants of Palestine. Then the chiefs of Edom will be dismayed. The mighty men of Moab, trembling, will take hold of them. All the inhabitants of Canaan will melt away. Fear and dread will fall on them. By the greatness of your arm, they will be as still as a stone, till your people pass over, O Yahweh, till the people pass over whom you have purchased. You will bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Yahweh, which you have made for your own dwelling, the set-apart place, O Yahweh, which your hands have established. Yahweh shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and his horsemen into the sea, and Yahweh brought back the waters of the sea upon them, but the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. Then Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing to Yahweh, for he has lifted up his arm, the horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. So Musa brought Israel from the sea of reeds, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no Maim. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. And the people complained against Musa, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a tree, which when he cast it into the Maim were made sweet. There he made a statute and an ordinance for them, and there he tested them, and said, If you will diligently heed the voice of Yahweh your power, and will do that what is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I have brought on the midstream, for I am Yahweh who heals you. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of Maim and 70 palm etzim trees, so they encamped there by the Maim. Chapter 16. And they journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they departed from the land of Mitzrayim. Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Musa and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, Oh, that we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate lachem to the full, for you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then Yahweh said to Musa, Behold, I will rain lachem from Shemaim for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my Torah or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Then Musa and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, At evening you shall know that Yahweh has brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, and in the morning you shall see the esteem of Yahweh, for he hears your complaints against Yahweh. And what are we, that you complain against us? And Musa said, This shall be seen, when Yahweh gives you meat to eat in the evening, and in the morning lachem to the full, for Yahweh hears your complaints, which you make against him. And what are we? Your complaints are not against us, but against Yahweh. And Musa spoke to Aaron, Say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, Come near before Yahweh, for he has heard your complaints. Now it came to pass, as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the esteem of Yahweh appeared in the cloud. And Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, I have heard the complaints of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, At twilight you shall eat meat. In the morning you shall be filled with lachem, and you shall know that I am Yahweh of power. So it was that quails came up at evening and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay all around the camp. And when the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a small round thing, as fine as frost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, Is this manna? For they were not sure what it was. And Musa said to them, This is the lachem which Yahweh has given you to eat. This is a thing which Yahweh has commanded. Let every man gather it according to each one's need. 1 omer for each person according to the number of persons. Let every man take for those who are in his tent. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered, some more, some less. So when they measured it by omers, he who gathered much had nothing over, and he who gathered little had no lack. Every man had gathered according to each one's need. And Musa said, Let no one leave any of it till morning. Notwithstanding, they did not listen to Musa, but some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Musa was angry with them. So they gathered it every morning, every man according to his need, and when the sun became hot, it melted. And so it was on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much lachem, 2 omers for each one. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Musa. And he said to them, This is what Yahweh has said. Tomorrow is a Sabbath rest, a set-apart Sabbath to Yahweh. Bake what you will bake today, and boil what you will boil, and lay up for yourselves all that remains to be kept until morning. So they laid it up till morning, as Musa commanded, and it did not stink, nor were there any worms in it. Then Musa said, Eat that today, for today is a Sabbath to Yahweh. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, there will be none. Now it happened that some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather, but they found none. And Yahweh said to Musa, How long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my Torah? Instructions. See, for Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you on the 6th day lachem for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day, and the Beit of Israel called its name Manna, and it was like white coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. And Musa said, This is the thing which Yahweh has commanded. Fill an omer with it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the lachem, and which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Musa said to Aaron, Take a pot, and put an omer of manna in it, and lay it up before Yahweh, to be kept for your generations, as Yahweh commanded Musa. So Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel ate manna 40 years, until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. Please note, here we notice that Yahweh gave manna to the children of Israel, and also notice that our days started sunrise. They were instructed to collect manna in the morning, and that by the next morning it will be of no use, so it must not be kept beyond sunrise. The sunset days are a later model that are adopted today. Please also note that here, when the children of Israel ate manna, although looked like a coriander seed, it was to every man and to every woman as they wanted it to be. If they wanted it to taste like roast chicken, it will taste like roast chicken. If they wanted it to taste like fish, it will taste like grilled fish. It was to taste what each individual desired. End note. Chapter 17. And all the congregation of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the command of Yahweh, and camped in Rephidim, and there was no wine for the people to drink. Therefore the people contended with Musa, and said, Give us ma'im, that we may drink. And Musa said to them, Why do you contend with me? Why do you test Yahweh? And the people thirsted there for ma'im. And the people complained against Musa, and said, Why is it you have brought us up out of Mitzrayim to kill us, and our children, and our livestock with thirst? So Musa cried to Yahweh, saying, What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me. And Yahweh said to Musa, Go on before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand your rod, with which you struck the river, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and Maim will come out of it, that the people may drink. And Musa did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So he called the name of the place Maasah and Merivah, because of the contention of the children of Israel, and because they tested Yahweh, saying, Is Yahweh amongst us or not? Then Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Musa said to Yehoshua, Choose us some men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of Elohim in my hand. So Yehoshua did as Musa said to him, and fought with Amalek. And Musa, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And so it was, when Musa held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Musa's hands became heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. So Yehoshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then Yahweh said to Musa, Write this for a remembrance in the book, and recount it in the hearing of Yehoshua, for I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the Shemaim. And Musa built an altar and called his name, Yahweh is my banner. For he said, Because Yahweh has sworn, Yahweh will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Chapter 18. When Jethro the Kohen of Midian, Musa's father-in-law, heard of all that Elohim had done for Musa and for Israel his people, that Yahweh had brought Israel out of Mitzrayim, then Jethro, Musa's father-in-law, took Zipporah, Musa's wife, after he had divorced her, sending her back, and her 2 sons, of which the name of one was Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land, and the name of the other was Eliezer, for he said, The Elohim of my father was my help, and rescued me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Musa's father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Musa in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of Elohim. And he said to Musa, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you, with your wife and her 2 sons with her. And Musa went out to meet his father-in-law, bowed down and kissed him, and they asked each other about their well-being, and they went into the tent. And Musa told his father-in-law all that Yahweh had done to Pharaoh and to the Mitzrayim for Israel's sake, all the hardships that had come upon them on the way, and how Yahweh had rescued them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the good which Yahweh had done for Israel, whom he had rescued out of the hand of the Mitzrayim. And Jethro said, Increaser be Yahweh, who has rescued you out of the hand of the Mitzrayim, and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and who has rescued the people from under the hand of the Mitzrayim. Now I know that Yahweh is greater than all the powers, for in the very thing in which they behaved proudly, he was above them. Then Jethro, Musa's father-in-law, took a burnt offering and other sacrifices to offer to Elohim. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat lechem with Musa's father-in-law before Elohim. So it was on the next day that Musa sat to judge the people, and the people stood before Musa from morning until evening. So when Musa's father-in-law saw all that he did for the people, he said, What is this thing that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone, and all the people stand before you from morning until evening? And Musa said to his father-in-law, Because the people come to me to inquire of Elohim. When they have a difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one and another, and I make known the statutes of Elohim and his Torah, instructions. So Musa's father-in-law said to him, The thing that you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out. For this thing is too much for you. You are not able to perform it by yourself. Listen now to my voice. I will give you counsel, and Elohim will be with you. Stand before Elohim for the people, so that you may bring the difficulties to Elohim. And you shall teach them the statutes and the Torah, and show them the way in which they must walk and the work they must do. Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men, such as fear Elohim, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they themselves shall judge. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this thing, and Elohim so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all the people will also go to their place in peace. So Musa heeded the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said. And Musa chose able men out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And they judged the people at all times. The hard cases they brought to Musa, but they judged every small case themselves. Then Musa sent away his father-in-law, and he went his way to his own province. 19. In the 3rd month after the children of Israel had gone out of the land of Mitzrayim, the same day they came to the wilderness of Sinai, for they had departed from Rephidim, and had come to the wilderness of Sinai, and camped in the wilderness, and Israel camped there before the mountain. And Moshe went up to Elohim, and Yahweh called to him from the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the Ba'ith of Yaakov, and tell the children of Israel, You have seen what I did to the Mitzrim, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special possession to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests, and a set-apart nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel. So Moshe came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before them all these words which Yahweh commanded him. Then all the people answered together, and said, All that Yahweh has spoken we will do. And Moshe brought back the words of the people to Yahweh. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Behold, I come to you in the thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and believe you forever. And Moshe told the words of the people to Yahweh. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, Go to the people, and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and let them be ready for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day Yahweh will come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. You shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that you do not go up to the mountain, or touch its base. Whoever touches a mountain shall surely be put to death. Not a hand shall touch it, but he shall surely be stoned, or shot with an arrow. Whether man or beast, it shall not live. When the shofar sounds long, they shall come near the mountain. Then Moshe went down from the mountain to the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, Be ready for the 3rd day. Do not come near your wives. Then it came to pass on the 3rd day in the morning that there was thunderings and lightnings, and a thick cloud on the mountain, and the sound of the shofar was very loud, so that all the people who were in the camp trembled. And Moshe brought the people out of the camp to meet with Elohim, and they stood underneath the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was completely in smoke, because Yahweh descended upon it in fire. Its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. And when the blast of the shofar sounded long, and became louder and louder, Moshe spoke, and Elohim answered him by voice. Then Yahweh came down upon Mount Sinai, on the top of the mountain, and Yahweh called Moshe to the top of the mountain, and Moshe went up. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Go down, and warn the people, lest they break through to gaze at Yahweh, and many of them perish. And let the priests who come near Yahweh consecrate themselves, lest Yahweh break out against them. And Moshe said to Yahweh, The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, Set bounds around the mountain and consecrate it. Then Yahweh said to him, Away, get down, and then come up, you and Aaron with you. But do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to Yahweh, lest he break out against them. So Moshe went down to the people and spoke to them. Chapter 20. Aseret HaDevorot, the 10 Commandments. First in Hebrew. Vayedaver Elohim et kol hadevrim ha'ile lemor. Enochi Yahweh Elohecha asher hotzettecha me'eretz Mitzrayim mavet avdim. Lo yehiyi lecha Elohim achrim al paneh. Lo ta'aseh lecha וסל וכל תמונה אשר בשמיים ממעל ואשר בארץ מתחת ואשר במים מתחת לארץ לא תשתחווה לכם ולא תעבדים כי אנוכי יהוה אלוהיך אלקנה פוקד עוון אבות על בנים על לשים ועל רבעים לשונא, ועושה חסד לאלפים, לאוהבי ולשומרי מצוותי. לא תישא את שם יהוה אלוהיך לשווא, כי לא ינקה יהוה את אשר יישא את שמו לשווא. זכור את יום השבת לחודשו. 6 ימים תעבוד ועשיתי כל מלאכתך. ויום השביעי שבת ליהוה אלוהיך. לא תעשה כל מלאכה אתה ובנך ובתך עבדך ואמתך ובהתך וגרך אשר בשעריך. כי 7 ימים עשה יהוה את השמיים ואת הארץ, את הים ואת כל אשר בם, וינח ביום השביעי על כי ברך יהוה את יום השבת ויחדשהו. כבד את אביך ואת אמך למען יאריכון ימיך על האדמה אשר יהוה אלוהיך נותן לך. לא תרצח, לא תנאף, לא תגנוב, לא תענה ורעך עד שחר. לא תחמוד בית רעך, לא תחמוד אשת רעך, ועבדו ואמתו ושורו וחמורו וכל אשר לרעך. וכל העם רואים את הקולות ואת הלפידים ואת כל השופר ואת ההר אשר וירא העם וינועו ויעמדו מרחוק. ויאמרו אל מוסה דבר אתה עמנו ונשמעה ואל ידבר עמנו אלוהים פן נמות. ויאמר מוסה אלהם אל תראו כי לבבור נשות אתכם בה האלוהים ובבור תהיה יראתו על פניכם לבל תחטאו. ויעמוד העם מרחוק ומוסה ניגש אל הערפל אשר שם האלוהים. ויאמר יהוה אל מוסה כה תאמר אל בני ישראל אתם נהייתם כי מן השמיים דיברתי עמכם. לא תעשון איתי אלוהי חסד ואלוהי זהב לא תעשו לכם. מזבח אדמה תעשה לי, וזבחת עליו את עולותיך ואת שלמך, את זונך ואת בקריך בכל המקום אשר אזכיר את שמי אבוא אליך וברכתיך. ואם מזבח אבנים תעשה לי לא תבנה את הן גזית כי חרביך הנתת עליה ותאכל עליה, ולא תעלה ומעלות על מזבחי אשר לא תגלי ערוותך עליו. The Ten Commandments, chapter 20, in English. And Elohim spoke all these words, saying, Aleph 1, I am Yahweh your power, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the bait of slavery. Bet 2, you shall have no other powers before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, or any likeness of anything that is in the Shemaim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the Maim under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them, for I, Yahweh your power, am a jealous El, visiting the iniquity of their oath on the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, and showing loving kindness to thousands, to those who love me and guard my commandments. Gimel 3, you shall not lift up the name of Yahweh your power in oaths falsely. Yahweh will not leave him unpunished who lifts up his name and falsifies it. Dalit 4, remember the Sabbath day to keep it set apart. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of Yahweh, your power. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the Shemaim and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh increased the Sabbath day and consecrated it. Hey, 5. Give esteem and honor to your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which Yahweh your power is giving you. Wa 6. You shall not murder. Zayin 7. You shall not commit adultery. Chet 8. You shall not steal. Tet 9. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Yud 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's bait. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. Now all the people witnessed the thunderings, the lightning flashes, the sound of the shofar, and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they trembled and stood afar off. And they said to Musa, you speak with us, and we will hear, but let no Elohim speak with us, lest we die. And Musa said to the people, do not fear, for Elohim has come to test you, and that his fear may be before you, so that you may not transgress. And the people stood afar off, but Musa drew near the thick darkness where Elohim was. Then Yahweh said to Musa, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, you have seen that I have talked with you from the Shemaim. You shall not make to be like me Elohim of silver, neither shall you make Elohim of gold. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and you shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen, in every place where my name is mentioned. I will come to you, and I will increase you. And if you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stone, for if you use your tool on it, you have profaned it. Neither shall you go up by steps to my altar, that your nakedness may not be exposed on it. Please note, from these commandments, there are many important references. But what we can understand from the summary of the last statements that were made to Moses was that the priesthood is to use Yahweh's name and to bless the people, to increase them, so that they may be benefited, So the name of Yahweh is to be mentioned upon the people of Israel, or all those that have joined Israel. End note. Chapter 21. Now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. If you buy an Abrahu servant, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free and pay nothing. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master has given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant plainly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, and then his master shall bring him to the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or to the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. And if a man sells his daughter to be a female servant, she shall not go out as the male servants do. If she does not please her master, who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. And if he has betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her according to the custom of daughters. If he takes another wife, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, and her marriage rights. And if he does not do these 3 for her, then she shall go out free without paying money. He who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. And if he did not lie in wait, but Elohim has given him into his hand, then I will appoint for you a place where he may flee. And if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, ye shall take him from my altar, that he may die. And he who strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. He who kidnaps a man and sells him, or if he is found in his land, shall surely be put to death. And he who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. If men contend with each other, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die, but is confined to his bed, if he rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he who struck him shall be acquitted. He shall only pay for the loss of his time, and shall provide for him to be thoroughly healed. And if a man beats his male or female servant with a rod, so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he remains alive a day or 2, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. If men fight and hurt a woman with child, so that she gives birth prematurely, yet no lasting harm follows, he shall surely be punished accordingly, as the woman's husband imposes on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. And if any lasting harm follows, then he shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. If a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he shall let him go free for the sake of his eyes. And if he knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he shall let him go free for the sake of his tooth. If an ox goes a man or a woman to death, then the ox shall surely be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be acquitted. And if the ox tended to thrust with his horn in times past, and it had been made known to his owner, and he has not kept it confined, so that it has killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. If there is imposed on him a sum of money, then he shall pay to redeem his life, whatever is imposed on him. Whether it has gored a son or gored a daughter, according to this judgment it shall be done to him. If the ox goes a male or female servant, he shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver coins, and the ox shall be stoned. And if a man opens a pit, or if a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls in it, the owner of the pit shall make it good. He shall give money to their owner, but the dead animal shall be his. And if one man's ox hurts another, so that it dies, then they shall sell the live ox, and divide the money from it, and the dead ox they shall also divide. If it was known that the ox tended to thrust in times past, and its owner has not kept it confined, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead animal shall be his own. Please note, the punishment that is declared over here is An eye and tooth for tooth doesn't mean to blind somebody. It means a fair amount of compensation that will be determined by the judges of the day. That means in 2016, the judges from the house of Israel, such as Yehudah, or a priest will sit and decide the matter. Also, please note that in times past, the Torah allows plural marriage, and here it dictates what is the purpose and principle of plural marriage. That if a man takes a wife, he must make sure that she is provided for in every way, and if a man cannot afford that wife, he is not permitted to take another wife. End quote. Chapter 22. If a man steals an ox or a sheep, and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep. If the thief is found breaking in, and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. He should make full restitution. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft is certainly found alive in his hand, whether it is an ox or a donkey or sheep, he shall restore double. If a man causes a field or vineyard to be grazed, and lets loose his animal, and it feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. If fire breaks out and catches in thorns, so that stacked grain, standing grain, or the field is consumed, he who kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man gives to his neighbor money or articles to keep, and it is stolen out of the man's base, if the thief is found, he shall pay double. If the thief is not found, then the master of the bait shall be brought to the judges to see whether he has put his hand into his neighbor's goods. For any kind of trespass, whether it concerns an ox, a donkey, a sheep, or clothing, or for any kind of lost thing which another claims to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whomever the judges condemn shall pay double to his neighbor. If a man gives to his neighbor a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any animal to keep, and it dies, is hurt or driven away, no one seeing it, then an oath of Yahweh shall be between them both, that he has not put his hand into his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept that, and he shall not make it good. But if in fact it is stolen from him, he shall make restitution to the owner of it. If it is torn to pieces by a beast, then he shall bring it as evidence, and he shall not make good what was torn. And if a man borrows anything from his neighbor, and it becomes injured or dies, the owner of it not being with it, he shall surely make it good. But if its owner was with it, he shall not make it good. If it was hired, it came for his hire. And if a man entices a virgin who is not betrothed, and lies with her, he shall surely pay the bride price for her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money according to the bride price of virgins. You shall not permit a sorceress to live. Whoever lies with an animal shall surely be put to death. He who sacrifices to any Elohim, except to Yahweh only, he shall be utterly destroyed. You shall neither mistreat a foreigner nor oppress him, for you were foreigners in the land of Mitzrayim. You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict them in any way, and they cry at all to me, I will surely hear their cry. And my wrath will become hot, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. If you lend money to any of my people who are poor among you, you shall not be like a moneylender to him. You shall not charge him interest. If you ever take your neighbor's garment as a pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down. For that is his only covering, it is his garment, for his skin. What will he sleep in? And it will be that when he cries to me, I will hear, for I am gracious. You shall not revile Elohim, nor curse an Israeli ruler of your people. You shall not delay to offer the first of your ripe produce and your juices. The Bahor of your sons you shall give to me. Likewise you shall do with your oxen, and your sheep. It shall be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day you shall give it to me, and you shall be set apart, men to me. You shall not eat any meat which is torn by beasts in the field. You shall throw it to the dogs. Please note, throw it to the dogs is a euphemism for giving the torn animal to the Gentiles or sell it to the Gentiles. We're not permitted to eat an animal that was cut down in that particular way, killed by a beast. End note. Chapter 23. You shall not circulate a false report. Do not put your hand with the wicked to be a wicked witness. You shall not follow a crowd to do evil, nor shall you testify in a dispute, so as to turn aside after many to pervert justice. You shall not show partiality to a poor man in his dispute. If you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him again. If you see the donkey of one who hates you fallen under its burden, would you refrain from helping? No, you shall surely help him. You shall not pervert the judgment of your poor in his dispute. Keep yourself far from a false matter. Do not kill the innocent and right ruling, for I will not justify the wicked. And you shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the discerning, and perverts the words of the right ruling. Also, you shall not oppress a foreigner, for you know the heart of a foreigner, because you were foreigner in the land of Mitzrayim. 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its produce, and the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field may eat. In like manner you shall do with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may well rest, and the son of your female servant and the strangers may be refreshed. And in all that I have said to you, be very careful, and make no mention of the name of other Elohim, nor let it be heard from your mouth. 3 times you shall keep a feast to me in the year. You shall keep the Chag HaMatzot, appointed celebration time of unleavened bread. You shall eat matzah, unleavened bread, 7 days, as I commanded you, at the time appointed in the month of Aviv, for in it you came out of Mitzrayim. None shall appear before me empty. And the Chag HaShavuot, the appointed celebration time at the harvest, the Bikurim, first fruits of your labors which ye have sown in the field, and Chag HaSukkot, the feast of Sukkot, or ingathering, at the end of the year, when ye have gathered in the fruit of your labors from the field. 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before Yahweh Elohim. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with chametz lachem, leavened bread, nor shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until morning. The first of the bikurim of your land you shall bring into the baith of Yahweh your power. You shall not grow a young goat in her mother's milk. Behold, I send a malach before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Do not provoke him, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if you indeed obey his voice, and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies, and an adversary to your adversaries. For my malach will go before you, and bring you into the Amori, and the Chitti, and the Perzi, and the Kenani, and the Chuvi, and the Yevusi, and I will cut them off. You shall not bow down to their powers, nor serve them, nor do according to their works, but you shall utterly overthrow them, and completely break down their altars. So you shall serve Yahweh your power, and he will increase your lachem and your ma'im, and I will take sickness away from the midst of you. No one shall suffer miscarriage, or be barren in your land. I will fulfill the number of your days. I will send my fear before you. I will cause confusion among all the people to whom you come, and will make all your enemies turn their backs to you. And I will send hornets before you, which shall drive out the Hivi, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. Little by little I will drive them out from before you, until you have increased, and you inherit the land. And I will set your bounds from the sea of reeds to the sea of the Plashtim, and from the wilderness to the river, for I will hand over the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their powers. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you transgress against me. For if you serve their powers, it will surely be a trap for you. Please notice in verse 19, the feast of Bikurim, first fruit, is mentioned. In most Bibles out there that are mistranslated, it will say something to the effect of, the choicest first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. This translation that you find in most Bible translations out there is a very incorrect translation. Based on these incorrect translations, the Yahudim, the Jews today, do not cook meat and milk together. However, the commandment is not about meat and milk. The commandment is, you shall not grow a young goat in her mother's milk, which means you do not allow the kid to grow up in the milk before bringing the kid for a sacrifice to the house of Yahweh. It has nothing to do with milk and meat. The Hebrew word there, bishul, means not to ripen something. In other words, we are not allowed to grow that kid before it comes to the slaughter. Hence why you will find that most of the Bibles that translate this as seething a kid in the mother's milk is incorrect. And note, chapter 24. Now he said to Musa, come up to Yahweh, you and Aaron, Nadab and Avihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and pay homage from afar. And Musa alone shall come near Yahweh, but they shall not come near, nor shall the people go up with him. So Musa came and told the people of all the words of Yahweh and all the judgments. And all the people answered with one voice, and said, all the words which Yahweh has said we will do. And Musa wrote all the words of Yahweh. And he rose early in the morning, and built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and 12 altars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he sent young men of the children of Israel, who offered burnt offerings, and sacrificed shalom offerings of oxen to Yahweh. And Musa took half the blood, and put it in basins, and half the blood he sprinkled on the altar. Then he took the scroll of the Brit covenant, and read in the hearing of the people, and they said, all that Yahweh has said, وَنَعْسَ وَنِشْمَ, we will do and we will hear. And Musa took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which Yahweh has made with you, according to all these words. Then Musa went up, also Aaron, Nadab, and Avihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the Elohim of Israel, and supporting his feet with great strength, there appeared to be a brilliant transparent sapphire, and standing above it a pillar of strength as a bone body, his essence pure as Shemaim. But on the nobles of the children of Israel he did not lay his hand, so they saw Elohim, and they ate and drank. Then Yahweh said to Musa, come up to me on the mountain, and be there, and I will give you tablets of stone, and the Torah of commandments, which I have written, that you may teach them. So Musa arose with his assistant Yehoshua, and Musa went up to the mountain of Elohim. And he said to the elders, wait here for us until we come back to you. Indeed, Aaron and Hur are with you, If any man has a difficulty, let him go to them. Then Musa went up into the mountain, and a cloud covered the mountain. Now the esteem of Yahweh rested on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And on the 7th day he called to Musa out of the midst of the cloud. The sight of the esteem of Yahweh was like a consuming fire on the top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. So Musa went to the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain. And Musa was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Please notice that in verse 7 it says that he took the scroll of the Brit. This is the scroll of the contract, and he read it in the hearing of the people, so all the people would hear the Torah. And they said, all that Yahweh has said we will do and we will hear. Vane asa wa nishma. So Israel said that they will do, but they will get the understanding later. This is what pleased Yahweh. And note. Chapter 25. Then Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, that they bring me an offering. From everyone who gives it willingly, with his heart, you shall take my offering. And this is the offering which you shall take from them, gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, fine linen, and goat's hair, ram skins dyed red, blue skins, and acacia wood, oil for the light, and spices for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, onyx stones, and stones to be set in the ephod and in the breastplate, and let them make me a set-apart place, that I may dwell among them, according to all that I show you, that is, the pattern of the tent and the pattern of all its furnishings, just so you shall make it. And they shall make an ark of acacia wood. Its length is to be 3 feet 9 inches, its width 2 feet 3 inches, and its height 2 feet 3 inches. And you shall overlay it with pure gold, inside and out you shall overlay it, and shall make on it a moulding of gold all around. You shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them in its 4 corners. 2 rings shall be on one side, and 2 rings on the other side. And you shall make poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. You shall put the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark, that the ark may be carried by them. The poles shall be in the rings of the ark, they shall not be taken from it. And you shall put into the ark the testimony which I will give you. You shall make a lid of atonement of pure gold, its length to be 3 feet 9 inches, and its width to be 2 feet 3 inches. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold, of hammered work. You shall make them at the 2 ends of the lid of atonement. Make 1 cherub at one end, and the other cherub at the other end. You shall make the cherubim angels at the 2 ends of it of one piece with the lid of atonement. And the cherubim shall stretch out their wings above, covering the lid of atonement with their wings, and they shall face one another. The faces of the cherubim shall be toward the lid of atonement. You shall put the lid of atonement on top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I will give you, and there I will meet with you, and I will speak with you from above the lid of atonement, from between the 2 cherubim which are on the ark of testimony, of all things which I give you in commandment to the children of Israel. You shall also make a table of acacia wood. 3 feet shall be its length, 1 foot and 6 inches its width, and its height to be 2 feet 3 inches. And you shall overlay it with pure gold, and make a moulding of gold all around. You shall make for it a frame of a handbreadth all around. You shall make a gold moulding for the frame all around. And you shall make for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings on the 4 corners that are at its 4 legs. The rings shall be close to the frame, as holders for the poles to bear the table. And you shall make the poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold, that the table may be carried with them. You shall make its dishes, its pans, its pitchers, and its bowls for pouring. You shall make them of pure gold. And you shall set the lachem, panim, bread of the faces, on the table before me always, also known as showbread. You shall also make a menorah of pure gold. The menorah shall be of hammered work. Its shaft, its branches, its bowls, its ornamental knobs and flowers shall be of one piece. And 6 branches shall come out of its sides. 3 branches of the menorah out of one side, and 3 branches of menorah out of the other side. 3 bowls shall be made like almond blossoms on one branch, with an ornamental knob and a flower, and 3 bowls made like almond blossoms on the other branch, with an ornamental knob and a flower, and so for the 6 branches that come out of the menorah. On the menorah itself 4 bowls shall be made like almond blossoms, each with its ornamental knob and flower. And there shall be a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that extend from the menorah. Their knobs and their branches shall be of one piece. All of it shall be one hammered piece of pure gold. You shall make 7 lamps for it, and they shall arrange its lamps, so that they give light in front of it, and its wick trimmers, and their clays shall be of pure gold. It shall be made of a talent of pure gold, with all these utensils, and see to it that you make them according to the pattern which was shown you on the mountain. Please note, Moses had no way of knowing what the menorah would look like. So we see here that Yahweh tells Moses that it shall be the pattern that Yahweh has shown him. This means that Yahweh had shown him the menorah, that the original was in the heavens, in the temple above, and from that Moses knew how this menorah should look. And note. Chapter 26. Moreover, you shall make the tent with 10 curtains of fine woven linen, and blue, purple, and scarlet thread. With artistic designs of grooving you shall weave them. The length of each curtain shall be 42 feet, and the width of each curtain to be 6 feet. And every one of the curtains shall have the same measurements. 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another, and the other 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another. And you shall make loops of blue yarn on the edge of the curtain on the corner of one set, and likewise you shall do on the outer edge of the other curtain of the second set. 50 loops you shall make in the one curtain, and 50 loops you shall make on the edge of the curtain that is on the end of the second set. The loops may be clasped to one another. And you shall make 50 clasps of gold, and couple the curtains together with the clasps, so that it may be one tent. You shall also make curtains of goat's hair, to be a tent over the tent. You shall make 11 curtains. The length of each curtain shall be 45 feet, and the width of each curtain to be 6 feet, and the 11 curtains shall all have the same measurements. And you shall couple 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves, and you shall double over the 6th curtain at the forefront of the tent. You shall make 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that is outermost on one set, and 50 loops on the edge of the curtain of the second set. And you shall make 50 bronze clasps, put the clasps into the loops, and couple the tent together, that it may be one. The remnant that remains of the curtains of the tent, the half curtain that remains, shall hang over the back of the tent, and 1.5 feet on one side, and 1.5 feet on the other side, of what remains of the length of the curtains of the tent, shall hang over the sides of the tent, on this side and on that side, to cover it. You shall also make a covering of ram skins, dyed red for the tent, and a covering of blue skins above that. And for the tent, You shall make the boards of acacia wood standing upright. 10 cubits shall be the length of a board, and 1.5 cubits shall be the width of each board. 2 tenons shall be in each board for binding one to another. Thus you shall make for all the boards of the tent. And you shall make the boards for the tent, 20 boards for the south side. You shall make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under each of the boards for its 2 tenons. And for the second side of the tent, the north side, there shall be 20 boards. And there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under each of the boards. For the far side of the tent, westward, you shall make 6 boards. And you shall also make 2 boards for the 2 back corners of the tent. They shall be coupled together at the bottom, and they shall be coupled together at the top by 1 ring. Thus it shall be for both of them. They shall be for the 2 corners. So there shall be 8 boards with their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under each board. And you shall make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards on one side of the tent, 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the tent, and 5 bars for the boards of the side of the tent, for the far side westward. The middle bar shall pass through the midst of the boards from end to end. You shall overlay the boards with gold, make their rings of gold as holders for the bars, and overlay the bars with gold. You shall raise up the tent according to its pattern, which you were shown on the mountain. You shall make a veil woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. It shall be woven with an artistic design of cherubim. You shall hang it upon the 4 pillars of acacia wood, overlaid with gold. Their hooks shall be of gold, upon 4 sockets of silver. And you shall hang the veil from the clasps. Then you shall bring the ark of the testimony in there behind the veil. The veil shall be a divider for you between the set-apart place and the most set apart. You shall put the lid of atonement upon the ark of the testimony in the most set-apart place. You shall set the table outside the veil, and the menorah across from the table on the side of the tent toward the south. And you shall put the table on the north side. You shall make a screen for the door of the tent, woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen made by a weaver. And you shall make for the screen 5 pillars of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. Their hooks shall be of gold. You shall cast 5 sockets of bronze for them. Please note once again, Moses was shown the pattern of how to make the tabernacle, the tent of meetings, of the appointed times, without which Moses would not know how to make this structure. And note. Chapter 27. You shall make an altar of acacia wood, 7 feet 6 inches long, and 7 feet 6 inches wide. The altar shall be square, and its height shall be 4 feet 6 inches. You shall make its horns on its 4 corners. Its horns shall be of one piece with it, and you shall overlay it with bronze. Also, you shall make its pans to receive its ashes, and its shovels, and its basins, and its forks, and its fire pans. You shall make all its utensils of bronze. You shall make a grate for it, a network of bronze, and on the network you shall make 4 bronze rings at its 4 corners. You shall put it under the rim of the altar beneath, that the network will be midway up the altar. You shall make poles for the altar, poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with bronze. The poles shall be put in the rings, and the poles shall be on the 2 sides of the altar to bear it. You shall make it hollow with boards, as it was shown you on the mountain, so shall you make it. You shall also make the court of the tent. For the south side here shall be hangings for the court, made of fine woven linen, 100 cubits long for one side. and its 20 pillars and their 20 sockets shall be of bronze. The hooks of the pillars and their bands shall be of silver. Likewise, along the length of the north side there shall be hangings 150 feet long, with its 20 pillars and their 20 sockets of bronze, and the hooks of the pillars and their bands of silver. And along the width of the court on the west side shall be hangings of 75 feet, with their 10 pillars and their 10 sockets. The width of the court on the east side shall be 75 feet. The hangings on one side of the gate shall 22.5 feet long, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. And on the other side shall be hangings of 22.5 feet long, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. For the gate of the court there shall be a screen 30 feet long, woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen made by a weaver. It shall have 4 pillars and 4 sockets. All the pillars around the court shall have bands of silver. Their hooks shall be of silver, and their sockets of bronze. The length of the court shall be 150 feet long, the width 75 feet throughout, and the height 7.5 feet, woven of the linen thread, and its sockets of bronze. All the utensils of the tent, for all its service, all its pegs, and all the pegs of the court, shall be of bronze. And you shall command the children of Israel that they bring you pure oil of pressed olives for the light to cause the lamp to burn continually in the tent of the appointed times, outside the veil, which is before the congregation, for a true report. Aaron and his sons shall tend it from evening until morning before Yahweh. It shall be a statute forever to their generations on behalf of the children of Israel. Chapter 28. Now take Aaron your brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister to me as Kohen, priest, Aaron and Aaron's sons, Nadav, Avihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. And you shall make set-apart garments for Aaron your brother, for esteem and for beauty. Speak to all who are gifted artisans, whom I have filled with the ruach of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister to me as Kohen. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a skillfully woven tunic, a turban, and a sash. So they shall make set-apart garments for Aaron your brother and his sons, that he may minister to me as Kohen. They shall take the gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread and fine linen, and they shall make the ephod of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen, artistically worked. It shall have 2 shoulder straps, joined at its 2 edges, and so it shall be joined together. And the intricately woven band of the ephod, which is on it, shall be of the same workmanship, made of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. Then you shall take 2 onyx stones, and engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel, 6 of their names on one stone, and the remaining 6 names on the other stone, according to their birth, with the work of an engraver in stone, like the engravings of a signet. You shall engrave the 2 stones with the names of the sons of Israel. You shall set them in settings of gold. And you shall put the 2 stones on the shoulders of the ephod as memorial stone for the sons of Israel. So Aaron shall bear their names before Yahweh on his 2 shoulders as a memorial. You shall also make settings of gold. And you shall make 2 chains of pure gold, like braided cords, and fasten the braided chains to the settings. You shall make the breastplate of judgment, artistically woven according to the workmanship of the ephod. You shall make it of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. You shall make it. It shall be doubled into a square 9 inches. shall be its length, and 9 inches shall be its width. And you shall put settings of stones in it, 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a sardius, a topaz, and an emerald. This shall be the first row. The second row shall be a turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond. The third row a jacinth, and a agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row a beryl, and onyx, and jasper. They shall be set in gold settings. And the stones shall have the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a signet, each one with its own name. They shall be according to the 12 tribes. You shall make chains for the breastplate at the end, like braided cords of pure gold. And you shall make 2 rings of gold for the breastplate, and put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. Then you shall put the 2 braided chains of gold in the 2 rings which are on the ends of the breastplate, and the other 2 ends of the 2 braided chains you shall fasten to the 2 settings, and put them on the shoulder straps of the ephod in the front. You shall make 2 rings of gold, and put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate, on the edge of it, which is on the inner side of the ephod. And 2 other rings of gold you shall make, and put them on the 2 shoulder straps, underneath the ephod towards its front, right at the seam above the intricately woven band of the ephod. They shall bind the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the ephod, using a blue cord, so that it is above the intricately woven band of the ephod, and so that the breastplate does not come loose from the ephod. So Aaron shall bear the names of the sons of Israel on the breastplate of judgment over his heart, when he goes into the set-apart place as a memorial before Yahweh continually. And you shall put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be over Aaron's heart when he goes in before Yahweh. So Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel over his heart before Yahweh continually. You shall make the robe of the ephod all of blue. There shall be an opening for his head in the middle of it. It shall have a woven binding all around its opening, like the opening in a coat of mail, so that it does not tear. And upon its hem you shall make pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet, all around its hem, and the bells of gold between them all around, the golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate, upon the hem of the robe all around. And it shall be upon Aaron when he ministers, and its sound will be heard when he goes into the set-apart place before Yahweh, and when he comes out, that he may not die. You shall also make a plate of pure gold, and engrave on it, like the engraving of a signet set apart to Yahweh. And you shall put it on a blue cord, that it may be on the turban. It shall be on the front of the turban, so it shall be on Aaron's forehead, that Aaron may bear the iniquity of the set-apart things which the children of Israel sanctify in all their set-apart gifts, and it shall always be on his forehead, that they may be accepted before Yahweh. You shall skillfully weave the tunic of fine linen, thread. You shall make the turban of fine linen, and you shall make the sash of woven work. For Aaron's sons you shall make tunics, and you shall make sashes for them, and you shall make turbans for them for esteem and beauty. So you shall put them on Aaron your brother, and on his sons with him. You shall anoint them, consecrate them, and sanctify them, that they may minister to me as priests. And you shall make for them linen trousers to cover their nakedness. They shall reach from the waist to the thighs. They shall be on Aaron and on his sons, when they come into the tent of the appointed times, or when they come near the altar to minister in the set-apart place, that they do not incur iniquity and die. It shall be a statute forever to him and his descendants after him. 29. And this is what you shall do to them to sanctify them for ministering to me as priests. Take one young bull and 2 rams without blemish, and matzah, and cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers anointed with oil. You shall make them of wheat flour. You shall put them in one basket, and bring them in the basket, with the bull and the 2 rams. And Aaron and his sons you shall bring to the door of the tent of the appointed times, and you shall wash them with ma'im. Then you shall take the garments, put the tunic on Aaron, and the robe of the ephod and the breastplate, and gird him with the intricately woven band of the ephod. You shall put the turban on his head, and put the set-apart crown on the turban. And you shall take the anointing oil, pour it on his head, and anoint him. Then you shall bring his sons, and put tunics on them, and you shall gird them with sashes, Aaron and his sons, and put the turbans on them. The priesthood shall be theirs for an everlasting law. So you shall consecrate Aaron and his sons. You shall also have the bull brought before the tent of the appointed times, and Aaron and his sons shall put their hands on the head of the bull. Then you shall kill the bull before Yahweh by the door of the tent of the appointed times. You shall take some of the blood of the bull, and put it on the horns of the altar with your finger, and pour all the blood beside the base of the altar. And you shall take all the fat that covers the entrails, the fatty lobe, attached to the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, and burn them on the altar. But the flesh of the bull, with its skin and its dung, you shall burn with fire outside the camp. It is a transgress offering. You shall also take 1 ram, and Aaron and his sons shall put their hands on the head of the ram, and you shall kill the ram, and you shall take its blood and sprinkle it all around on the altar. Then you shall cut the ram in pieces, wash his entrails and his legs, and put them with his pieces and with his head. And you shall burn the whole ram on the altar. It is a burnt offering to Yahweh. It is a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. You shall also take the other ram, and Aaron and his sons shall put their hands on the head of the ram. Then you shall kill the ram, and take some of its blood, and put it on the tip of the right ear of Aaron, and on the tip of the right ear of his sons, on the thumb of their right hand, on the big toe of their right foot, and sprinkle the blood all around on the altar. And you shall take some of the blood that is on the altar, and some of the anointing oil, and sprinkle it on Aaron, and on his garments, on his sons, and on the garments of his sons with him. And he and his garments shall be set apart, and sons' garments with him. Also you shall take the fat of the ram, the fat tail, the fat that covers the entrails, the fatty lobe attached to the liver, the 2 kidneys, and the fat on them, the right thigh, for it is a ram of consecration. 1 loaf of lechem, 1 cake made with oil, and 1 wafer from the basket of the matzah, that is before Yahweh. And you shall put all these in the hands of Aaron and the hands of his sons, and you shall wave them as a wave offering before Yahweh. You shall receive them back from their hands, and burn them on the altar as a burnt offering, as a sweet aroma before Yahweh. It is an offering made by fire to Yahweh. Then you shall take the breast of the ram of Aaron's consecration, and wave it as a wave offering before Yahweh, and it shall be your portion. And from the ram of the consecration you shall consecrate the breast of the wave offering, which is waved, and the thigh of the heave offering, which is raised, of that which is for Aaron, and of that which is for his sons. It shall be from the children of Israel, for Aaron and his sons by a statute forever. For it is a heave offering. It shall be a heave offering from the children of Israel, from the sacrifices of their shalom offerings, that is their heave offering to Yahweh. And the set-apart garments of Aaron shall be his sons after him, to be anointed in them, and to be consecrated in them. That son who becomes Kohen in his place shall put them on for 7 days, when he enters the tent of the appointed times to minister in the set-apart place. And he shall take the ram of the consecration and boil its flesh in the set-apart place. Then Aaron and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram and the lachem that is in the basket by the door of the tent of the appointed times. They shall eat those things with which the atonement was made to consecrate and to sanctify them, but a stranger shall not eat them, because they are set apart. And if any of the flesh of the consecration offerings of the lachem remains until the morning, then you shall burn the remainder with fire. It shall not be eaten, because it is set apart. Thus you shall do to Aaron and his sons, according to all that I have commanded you. 7 days you shall consecrate them. And you shall offer a bull every day as a transgression offering for atonement. You shall cleanse the altar when you make atonement for it, and you shall anoint it to sanctify it. 7 days you shall make atonement for the altar and sanctify it, and the altar shall be most set apart. Whatever touches the altar must be set apart. Now this is what you shall offer on the altar: 2 lambs of the first year, day by day, continually. 1 lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. With the 1 lamb shall be 1/10 of an ephah of flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil, and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering. And the other lamb you shall offer at twilight, and you shall offer with it the grain offering and the drink offering as in the morning, with a sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. This shall be a continual burnt offering throughout your generations at the door of the tent of the appointed times before Yahweh, where I will meet you to speak with you. And there I will meet with the children of Israel, and the tent shall be sanctified by my esteem. So I will consecrate the tent of the appointed times and the altar. I will also consecrate both Aaron and his sons to minister to me as priests. I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will be their Elohim. And they shall know that I am Yahweh the Elohim, who brought them up out of the land of Mitzrayim, that I may dwell among them. I am Yahweh the Elohim. Chapter 30. You shall make an altar to burn incense on. You shall make it of acacia wood. 1.5 feet shall be its length, and 1.5 feet its width. It shall be square, and 3 feet shall be its height. Its horns shall be of 1 piece with it. And you shall overlay its top, its sides all around, and its horns with pure gold. You shall make for it a moulding of gold all around. 2 gold rings you shall make for it, under the moulding on both its sides. You shall place them on its 2 sides, and they will be holders for the poles with which to bear it. You shall make the poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. And you shall put it before the veil, that is before the ark of the testimony, before the lid of atonement, that is over the testimony, where I will meet with you. Aaron shall burn its sweet incense every morning when he tends the lamps. He shall burn incense on it. When Aaron lights the lamps at twilight, he shall burn incense on it. Continue incense before Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall not offer strange incense on it, or a burnt offering, or a grain offering, nor shall you pour a wine offering on it. And Aaron shall make atonement upon its horns once a year, with the blood of the transgression offering of atonement. Once a year you shall make atonement upon it throughout your generations. It is most set apart to Yahweh. Then Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, When you take the census of the children of Israel for their number, then every man shall give a ransom for himself to Yahweh, when you number them, that there may be no plague among them when you number them. This is what everyone among those who are numbered shall give, half a shekel, according to the shekel of the Kadosh place. A shekel is 20 gerahs. The half shekel shall be an offering to Yahweh. Everyone included among those who are numbered, from 20 years old and above, shall give an offering to Yahweh. The rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than half a shekel, when you give an offering to Yahweh to make atonement for yourselves. And you shall take the atonement money of the children of Israel, and shall appoint for it for the service of the tent of the appointed times, that it may be a memorial for the children of Israel before Yahweh, to make atonement for yourselves. Then Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, You shall also make a laver of bronze, with its base also of bronze, for washing. You shall put it between the tent of the appointed times and the altar, and you shall put wine in it, for Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet in wine from out of it. When they go into the tent of the appointed times, or when they come near the altar to minister to burn an offering made by fire to Yahweh, they shall wash with wine, lest they die. So they shall wash their hands and their feet, lest they die, and it shall be a statute forever to them, to him and his descendants throughout their generations. Moreover, Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, Also take yourselves quality spices, 500 shekels of liquid myrrh, half as much sweet-smelling cinnamon, 250 shekels, 250 shekels of sweet-smelling cane, 500 shekels of cassia, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, and a hin of olive oil. You shall make from these a set-apart anointing oil, an ointment compounded according to the art of the perfumer. It shall be a set-apart anointing oil. With it you shall anoint the tent of the appointed times, and the ark of the testimony, the table, and all its utensils, the menorah, and its utensils, and the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offering, with all its utensils, and the laver and its base. You shall consecrate them, that they may be most set apart. Whatever touches them must be set apart. And you shall anoint Aaron and his sons, and consecrate them, that they may minister to me as priests. And you shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, This shall be the set-apart anointing oil to me throughout your generations. It shall not be poured on man's flesh, nor shall you make any other like it. According to its composition it is set apart, and it shall be set apart to you. Whoever makes any like it, or whoever puts any of it on an outsider, shall be cut off from its people. And Yahweh said to Musa, Take sweet spices, fragrant gum, and cinnamon, and galbanum, and pure frankincense. With these sweet spices there shall be equal amounts of each. You shall make of these an incense, a compound according to the art of the perfumer, salted, pure, and set apart. And you shall beat some of it very fine, and put some of it before the testimony in the tent of the appointed times, where I will meet with you. It shall be most set apart to you. But as for the incense which you shall make, you shall not make any for yourselves. According to its composition, it shall be to you set apart for Yahweh. Whoever makes any like it to smell it, he shall be cut off from his people. 31. Then Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, See, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah. And I have filled him with the spirit of Elohim, in wisdom, in understanding, in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship, to design artistic works, to work in gold, in silver, in bronze, in cutting jewels for setting, in carving wood, and to work in all manner of workmanship. And I, indeed I, have appointed with him Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and I have put wisdom in the hearts of all who are gifted artisans, that they may make all that I have commanded you. The tent of the appointed times, the ark of the testimony, and the lid of atonement that is on it, and all the furniture of the tent, the table and its utensils, the pure gold, menorah, with all its utensils, the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offering with all its utensils, and the laver and its base, the garments of ministry, the set-apart garments for Aaron the Kohen, and the garments of his sons to minister as priests, and the anointing oil and sweet incense for the set-apart place. According to all that I have commanded you they shall do. And Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, Speak also to the children of Israel, saying, Surely my Sabbaths you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh, who has sanctified you. You shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is set apart to you. Everyone who profanes it shall surely be put to death. For whoever does any work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his people. Work shall be done for 6 days, but the seventh is a Sabbath of rest, set apart to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Therefore the children of Israel shall guard the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout the generations as an everlasting covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made the Shemaim and the earth, and on the seventh day was a Sabbath to cease from all work and to be refreshed. And when he had made an end of speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave Musa 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone, written with the finger of Elohim. Chapter 32. Now when the people saw that Musa delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, Come, make us plows, that shall go before us. For as for this man Musa, the one who brought us up out of the land of Mitzrayim, we do not know what has become of him. And Aaron said to them, Take off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons and your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people took off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool, and made a molded calf. Then they said, This is your Elohi, or Yisrael, that brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. So when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a Chag, appointed celebration time to Yahweh. Then they rose early on the next day, offered burnt offerings, and brought shalom offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. And Yahweh said to Musa, Go, get down, for your people, whom you brought out of the land of Mitzrayim, have acted lawlessly. They have turned aside quickly out of the way, which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf, and paid homage to it, and sacrificed to it, and said, This is your Elohi, or Yisrael, that brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Yahweh said to Musa, I have seen this people, and indeed it is a stubborn people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, and I will make of you a great nation. Then Musa pleaded with Yahweh his Elohim, and said, Yahweh, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Mitzrayim, with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the midstream speak, and say, He brought them out to harm them, to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath, and relent from this harm to your people. Remember Abraham, Yitzchak, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self, and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of Shemaim, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. So Yahweh relented from the harm which he said he would do to his people. And Musa turned and went down from the mountain, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both sides. On the one side and on the other they were written. Now the tablets were the work of Elohim, and the writing was the writing of Elohim engraved on the tablets. And when Yehoshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Musa, There is a noise of war in the camp. But he said, It is not the voice of those who shout in victory, nor is it the voice of those who cry out in defeat, but the voice of those who sing that I hear. So it was, as soon as he came near the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing. Musa became enraged with anger, and he cast the tablets out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain. Then he took the calf which they had made, burned it in the fire, and ground it to powder, and he scattered it on the Maim, and made the children of Israel drink it. And Musa said to Aaron, What did this people do to you, that you have brought so great a transgression upon them? So Aaron said, Do not let the anger of my master become hot. You know the people, that they are set on evil. For they said to me, Make us powers, gods, that shall go before us. As for this Musa, the man who brought us out of the land of Mitzrayim, we do not know what has become of him. And I said to them, Whoever has any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it to me, and I cast it into the fire, and this calf came out. Now when Musa saw that the people were unrestrained, for Aaron had not restrained them, to their shame among their enemies, then Musa stood in the entrance of the camp and said, Whoever is on Yahweh's side, come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together to him. And he said to them, Thus says Yahweh Elohim of Israel, Let every man put his sword on his side, and go in and out from entrance to entrance throughout the camp. Let every man kill his brother, every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. So the sons of Levi did according to the word of Musa, and about 3,000 men of the people fell that day. Then Musa said, Consecrate yourselves today to Yahweh, that he may bestow on you an increase this day, for every man has opposed his son and his brother. And it came to pass on the next day that Musa said to the people, You have committed a great transgression, so now I will go up to Yahweh, perhaps I can make atonement for your transgression. And Musa returned to Yahweh and said, Oh, these people have committed a great transgression, and have made for themselves an Elohi, gods of gold. Yet now, if you will forgive their transgression, but if not, I petition, blot me out of your scroll, which you have written. And Yahweh said to Musa, Whoever has transgressed against me, I will blot him out of my scroll. Now therefore, go lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you. Behold, my Malach shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit for punishment, I will visit punishment upon them for their transgression. So Yahweh plagued the people because of what they did with the calf which Aaron made. Please note, a lot of the rebellious people that have made this calf, they have made the calf of Hathor, the Egyptian goddess. And this was a mixed multitude who have come up, who had corrupted some of the children of Israel. And then they had made this calf, and they called this calf not just God, but gods, in plural. Notice also that these people were committing all sorts of acts of sexual lewdness at the time, and all this act was greatly displeasing in the sight of Yahweh. As you may have noted earlier, Yehoshua ben Nun was waiting at the foot of the mountain for Moses to descend, for his teacher. He had stayed there all this while he had not joined any of the people in any of their transgression. Also notice that many of the Levites had refused to join in and were not part of the transgression. Aaron, the high priest, had been forced to do this act. End note. Chapter 33. Then Yahweh said to Musa, Depart and go up from here, you and the people whom you have brought out of the land of Mitzrayim, to the land of which I swore to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob, saying, To your descendants I will give it. And I will send my Malach before you, and I will drive out the Canaanite, and the Amori, and the Hitti, and the Perizzite, and the Hivi, and the Yebusi. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in your midst, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stubborn people. When the people heard this bad news, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. For Yahweh had said to Musa, Say to the children of Israel, You are a stubborn people. I could come up into your midst in one moment and consume you, Now therefore take off your ornaments, that I may know what to do to you. So the children of Israel stripped themselves of the ornaments by Mount Horeb. Musa took his tent, and pitched it outside the camp, far from the camp, and called it the tent of the appointed times. And it came to pass that everyone who sought Yahweh went out to the tent of the appointed times, which was outside the camp. So it was, whenever Musa went out to the tent, that all the people rose, and each man stood at his tent door, and watched Musa until he had gone into the tent. And it came to pass, when Musa entered the tent, that the pillar of cloud descended, and stood at the door of the tent, and Yahweh talked with Musa. All the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the tent door, and all the people rose and paid homage, each man in his tent door. So Yahweh spoke to Musa face to face, as a man speaks to his friend, and he would return to the camp. But his servant Yehoshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tent. Then Musa said to Yahweh, See, you say to me, Bring up this people. But you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now therefore I petition, if I found favor in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you, and that I may find favor in your sight, and consider that this nation is your people. And he said, My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then he said to him, If your presence does not go with us, do not bring us up from here. For how then will it be known that your people and I have found favor in your sight, except you go with us? So we shall be separate, your people and I, from all the people who are upon the face of the earth. Then Yahweh said to Musa, I will also do this thing that you have spoken, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name. And he said, Please, show me your esteem. Then he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of Yahweh before you. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But he said, You cannot see my face, for no man shall see me and live. And Yahweh said, Here is a place by me, and you shall stand on the rock. So it shall be, while my esteem passes by, that I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and will cover you with my hand while I pass by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. Chapter 34. And Yahweh said to Musa, Cut 2 tablets of stone like the first ones, and I will write on these tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke. So be ready in the morning, and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai, and present yourselves to me there on the top of the mountain. And no man shall come up with you, and let no man be seen throughout all the mountain. Let neither flocks nor herds feed before that mountain. So he cut 2 tablets of stone like the first ones. Then Musa rose early in the morning, and went up to Mount Sinai, as Yahweh had commanded him. And he took in his hand the 2 tablets of stone. Then Yahweh descended in the cloud, and stood with him there, and made proclamation of the name of Yahweh. And Yahweh passed before him, and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh El, the power, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abounding in goodness and truth, pouring his loving kindness for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and offense, by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the avowed upon the children and the children's children to the 3rd and the 4th generation. So Musa made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and paid homage. Then he said, If now I have found favor in your sight, O Yahweh, let my Yahweh, I petition, go among us, even though we are a stubborn people, and pardon our iniquity and our transgression, and take us as your inheritance. And he said, Behold, I make a covenant before you people. I will do marvels such have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among whom you are shall see the work of Yahweh, for it is an awesome thing that I will do with you. Observe what I command you this day. Behold, I am driving out from before you the Amori, and the Canaanite, the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Havvi, and the Yevusi. Take heed to yourselves, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you are going, lest it be a snare in your midst. But you shall destroy their altars, break their pillars, and cut down their Asherah poles. For you shall pay homage to no other God. For Yahweh, whose name is devoted, is a devoted El. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they play the harlot with their powers, and make sacrifice to their powers, and one of them invites you, and you eat of his sacrifice, and you take of his daughters for your sons, and his daughters play the harlot with their powers, and make your sons play the harlot with their powers. You shall make no molded powers for yourself. The Chag HaMatzot, the appointed celebration time of unleavened bread, you shall keep. 7 days you shall eat matzah, unleavened bread, as I commanded you, in the appointed time of the month of Aviv. For in the month of Aviv you came out from Mitzrayim. All that open the womb are mine, and every male Bechor among your livestock, whether ox or sheep. But the Bechor of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, and if you will not redeem him, then you shall break his neck. All the Bechor of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day you shall rest. In plowing time and in harvest you shall rest, and you shall observe Chag HaShavuot, the appointed celebration time of Pentecost, of the Bikurim of wheat harvest, and the Chag HaSukkot, the celebration appointed time of Sukkot, Tabernacles, the ingathering, at the year's end. 3 times in the year will all your men shall appear before Master Yahweh, Elohim of Israel. For I will cast out the nations before you, and enlarge your borders. Neither will any man covet your land when you go up to appear before Yahweh, your power, 3 times in the year. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with chametz, leaven, nor shall the sacrifice of Chag HaPesach, the appointed celebration time of Passover, be left until morning. The first of the Bikurim of your land you shall bring to the Baith of Yahweh, your power. You shall not grow a young goat in her mother's milk. Then Yahweh said to Musa, write these words, for according to the tenure of these words, I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. So he was there with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate lachem nor drank ma'im, and he wrote on the tablets the words of the contract, the 10 commandments. Now it was so, when Musa came down from Mount Sinai, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in Musa's hand when he came down from the mountain, that Musa did not know that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. So when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Musa, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near him. Then Musa called to them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned to him, and Musa talked with them. Afterward all the children of Israel came near, and he gave them as commandments all that Yahweh had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Musa had finished speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But whenever Musa went in before Yahweh to speak with him, he would take the veil off until he came out, and he would come out and speak to the children of Israel, whatever he had been commanded. And whenever the children of Israel saw the face of Musa, that the skin of Musa's face shone, then Musa would put the veil on his face again, until he went in to speak with him. Please notice that in verse 26 we have the same mention that you shall not grow a young goat in her mother's milk, regards the first fruit offering. The rabbinic interpretation was not to cook milk and meat together, but the actual interpretation is that you will not wait for the kid to grow up on the milk until the kid is brought for the sacrifice, which is the context of this verse. As said earlier, the pagans had a concept of cooking goat in her mother's milk. However, we have no such commandment not to eat milk and meat together, which is a rabbinic ordinance. The Hebrew word bishul means to grow, as in Bereshith, Genesis chapters 40 verse 10, in its first occurrence, to ripen. The interpretation agrees with Rabbi Yosef ben Yitzhak Bechor 12th century CE Orleans. In verses 14, for you shall pay homage to no other El, for Yahweh whose name is devoted is a devoted El. This word in most Bibles today is translated as jealous. However, in the Samaritan Torah, which has a more accurate translation, the word is translated as devoted. Hence why Yahweh is devoted to the children of Israel, because he is committed to them as a husband commits to a wife. Hence why the translation agrees with our translation. End note. Chapter 35. Then Musa gathered all the congregation of the children of Israel together and said to them, These are the words which Yahweh has commanded you to do. Work shall be done for 6 days, but the 7th day shall be set apart day for you, a Sabbath of rest to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. You shall kindle no fire throughout your dwellings on the Sabbath day. And Musa spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, This is a thing which Yahweh commanded, saying, Take from among you an offering to Yahweh. Whoever is of a willing heart, let him bring it as an offering to Yahweh, gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, fine linen, and goat's hair, ram skins dyed red, blue skins, and acacia wood, oil for the light, and spices for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, onyx stones, and stones to be set in the ephod and the breastplate. All who are gifted artisans among you shall come and make all that Yahweh has commanded, the tent, its covering, its clasps, its boards, its bars, its pillars, and its sockets, the arks and its poles, with the lid of atonement, and the veil of the covering, the table and its poles, all its utensils, and the lachem panaim, also the menorah for the light, its utensils, its lamps, and the oil for the light, the incense altar, its poles, the anointing oil, the sweet incense, and the screen for the door at the entrance of the tent, the altar of burnt offering, and its bronze grating, its poles, all its utensils, and the laver, and its base, the hanging of the court, its pillars, their sockets, and the screen for the gate of the court, the pegs of the tent, the pegs of the court, and their cords, the garments of ministry for ministering in the set-apart place, the set-apart garments for Aaron, the Kohen, and the garments of his sons to minister as Kohanim. And all the congregation of the children of Israel departed from the presence of Musa. And everyone came whose heart was lifted, and everyone whose ruach was willing, and they brought Yahweh's offering for the work of the tent of the appointed times, for all its service, and for the set-apart garments. They came, both men and women, as many as had a willing heart, and brought earrings, and nose rings, rings and necklaces, all jewelry of gold, that is every man who offered an offering of gold to Yahweh. And every man with whom was found blue, purple, and scarlet thread, fine linen, goat's hair, red skins of rams, and blue skins brought them. Every one who offered an offering of silver, of bronze, brought Yahweh's offering. And every one with whom was found acacia wood for any work of the service brought it. All the women who were gifted artisans spun yarn with their hands, and brought what they had spun of blue, purple, and scarlet, and fine linen. And all the women whose hearts stirred with wisdom spun yarns of goat's hair. The rulers brought onyx stones, and the stones to be set in the ephod and the breastplate, and spices and oil for the light, for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense. The children of Israel brought a freewill offering to Yahweh, all the men and women whose hearts were willing to bring material for all kinds of work, which Yahweh by the hand of Musa had commanded to be done. And Musa said to the children of Israel, See, Yahweh has called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah, and he has filled him with the ruach of Elohim, in wisdom and understanding, in knowledge and all manner of workmanship, to design artistic works, to work in gold and silver and bronze, in cutting jewels for setting, in carving wood, and to work in all manner of artistic workmanship, and has put in his heart the ability to teach in him. And Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan. He has lifted them with skill to do all manner of work of the engraver and the designer and the tapestry maker in blue, purple, and scarlet thread and fine linen, and of the weaver, those who do every work, and those who design artistic works. Chapter 36. And Bezalel and Aholiab and every gifted artisan in whom Yahweh has put wisdom and understanding to know how to do all manner of work for the service of the set-apart place, shall do according to all that Yahweh has commanded. Then Musa called Bezalel and Aholiab and every gifted artisan in whose heart Yahweh had put wisdom, everyone whose heart was stirred to come and do the work. And they received from Musa all the offering which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the service of making the set-apart place. So they continued bringing to him freewill offerings every morning. Then all the craftsmen who were doing all the work of the set-apart place came, each from the work he was doing. And they spoke to Musa, saying, The people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which Yahweh commanded us to do. So Musa gave a commandment, and they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the camp, saying, Let neither man nor woman do any more work for the offering of the set-apart place. And the people were restrained from bringing, for the material they had was sufficient for all the work to be done, indeed too much. Then all the gifted artisans among them, who worked on the tent, made 10 curtains woven of fine linen and of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, with artistic designs of carving they made them. The length of each curtain was 28 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits. The curtains were all the same size. And he coupled 5 curtains to one another, and the other 5 curtains he coupled to one another. He made loops of blue yarn on the edge of the curtain on the end of one set. Likewise he did on the outer edge of the other curtain of the second set. 50 loops he made on one curtain, and 50 loops he made on the edge of the curtain on the end of the second set. The loops held one curtain to another, and he made 50 clasps of gold, and coupled the curtains to one another with the clasps, that it might be one tent. He made curtains of goats. Here, for the tent over the tent, he made 11 curtains. The length of each curtain was 30 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits. The 11 curtains were the same size. He coupled 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. Then he made 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that is outermost in one set, and 50 loops he made on the edge of the curtain of the second set. He also made 50 bronze clasps to couple the tent together, that it might be one. Then he made a covering for the tent of ram, skins dyed red, and a covering of blue skins above that. For the tent he made boards of acacia wood, standing upright. The length of each board was 10 cubits, and the width of each board a cubit and a half. Each board had 2 tenons for binding, one to another. Thus he made for all the boards of the tent. And he made boards for the tent, 20 boards for the south side. 40 sockets of silver he made to go under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under each of the boards for its 2 tenons. And for the other side of the tent, the north side, he made 20 boards. And there were 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under each of the boards. For the west side of the tent he made 6 boards. He also made 2 boards for the 2 black corners of the tent, and they were coupled at the bottom and coupled together at the top by one ring. Thus he made both of them for the 2 corners. So there were 8 boards, and their sockets, 16 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under each of the boards. And he made bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards on one side of the tent, 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the tent, and 5 bars for the boards of the tent on the far side westward. And he made the middle bar to pass through the boards from one end to the other. He overlaid the boards with gold, made their rings of gold to be holders for the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold. And he made a veil of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine worked linen. It was woven with an artistic design of cherubim. He made for it 4 pillars of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold, with their hooks of gold, and he cast 4 sockets of silver for them. He also made a hanging for the entrance to the tent door of blue, purple and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen made by a weaver, and its 5 pillars with their hooks, and he overlaid their capitals and their rings with gold, but their 5 sockets were of bronze. Chapter 37. Then Bezalel made the ark of acacia wood. 3 feet 9 inches were its length, 2 feet 3 inches its width, and 2 feet 3 inches its height. He overlaid it with pure gold inside and outside, and made a molding of gold all around it. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold to be set in its 4 corners, 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other side of it. He made poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. And he put the poles into the rings at the sides of the ark to bear the ark. He also made the lid of atonement of pure gold. 3 feet 9 inches was its length, and 2 feet 3 inches its width. He made 2 cherubim of beaten gold. He made them of one piece at the 2 ends of the lid of atonement. 1 cherub at one end on this side, and the other cherub at the other end on that side. He made that cherubim at the 2 ends of one piece, with the lid of atonement. The cherubim spread out their wings above, and covered the lid of atonement with their wings. They faced one another. The faces of the cherubim were toward the lid of atonement. He made the table of acacia wood. 3 feet was its length, 1 foot 6 inches its width, and 2 feet 3 inches its height. And he overlaid it with pure gold, and made a molding of gold all around it. Also he made a frame of a handbreadth all around it, and made a molding of gold for the frame all around it. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings on the 4 corners that were its 4 legs. The rings were close to the frame, as holders for the poles to bear the table. And he made the poles of acacia wood to bear the table, and overlaid them with gold. He made of pure gold the utensils which were on the table, its dishes, its cups, its bowls, and its pitchers for pouring. He also made the menorah of pure gold, of hammered work. He made the menorah, its shaft, its branches, its bowls, its ornamental knobs, and its flowers were of the same piece. And 6 branches came out of its sides, 3 branches of the menorah out of one side, and 3 branches of the menorah out of the other side. There were 3 bowls made like almond blossoms on one branch, with an ornamental knob and a flower, and 3 bowls made like almond blossoms on the other branch, with an ornamental knob and a flower, and so for the 6 branches coming out of the menorah. And on the menorah itself were 4 bowls made like almond blossoms, each with its ornamental knob and flower. There was a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches extending from it. Their knobs and their branches were of one piece. All of it was one hammered piece of pure gold. And he made its 7 lamps, its wick trimmers, and its trays of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold he made it with all its utensils. He made the incense altar of acacia wood. Its length was a cubit, and its width a cubit. It was square, and 2 cubits was its height. Its horns were of one piece with it, and he overlaid it with pure gold, its top, its sides all around, and its horns. He also made for it a molding of gold and around it. He made 2 rings of gold for it under its molding, by its 2 corners on both sides, as holders for the poles with which to bear it. And he made the poles of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. He also made the set-apart anointing oil, and the pure incense of sweet spices, according to the work of the perfumer. 38. He made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was its length, and 5 cubits its width. It was square, and its height was 3 cubits. He made its horns on its 4 corners. The horns were of one piece with it, and he overlaid it with bronze. He made all the utensils for the altar, the pans, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. All its utensils he made of bronze. And he made a grate of bronze network for the altar under its rim, midway from the bottom. He cast 4 rings for the 4 corners of the bronze grating, as holders for the poles. And he made the poles of acacia wood, and overlaid them with bronze. Then he put the poles into the rings on the sides of the altar, with which to bear it. He made the altar hollow with bowls. He made the laver of bronze, and its base of bronze from the bronze mirrors of the ministering women who assembled at the door of the tent of the appointed times. Then he made the court on the south side. The hangings of the court were of fine woven linen, 150 feet long. There were 20 pillars for them, and 20 bronze sockets. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were of silver. On the north side, the hangings were 150 feet long, with 20 pillars and their 20 bronze sockets. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were of silver. And on the west side, there was hanging of 75 feet long, with 10 pillars and their 10 sockets. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were of silver. For the east side, the hangings were 75 feet wide. The hangings of one side of the gate were 22.5 feet long, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets, and the same for the other side of the court gate. On this side, and there were hangings 22.5 feet long, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. All the hangings of the court all around were of fine woven linen. The sockets of the pillars were of bronze. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were of silver, and the overlay of their capitals was of silver, and all the pillars of the court had bands of silver. The hanging for the gate of the court was woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen. The length was 30 feet long, and the height along its width was 7.5 feet high, corresponding to the hangings of the court. And there were 4 pillars with their 4 sockets of bronze. Their hooks were of silver, and the overlay of their capitals and their band was of silver. All the pegs of the tent and of the court all around were of bronze. This is the inventory of the tent of testimony, which was counted according to the commandment of Musa. For the service of the Levim by the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron, the Kohen, Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehudah, made all that Yahweh had commanded Musa. And with him was Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, an engraver and designer, a weaver of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine linen. All the gold that was used in all the work of the set-apart place, that is, the gold of the offering, was 29 talents, and 730 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place. And the silver from those who were numbered of the congregation was 100 talents, and 1,775 shekels, according to the shekel of the set-apart place. A becha for each man, that is half a shekel, according to the shekel of the set-apart place, for everyone included in the numbering from 20 years old and above, for 603,550 men. And from the 100 talents of silver were cast the sockets of the set-apart place, and the bases of the veil, 100 sockets from the 100 talents, 1 talent for each socket. And from the 1,775 shekels he made hooks for the pillars, overlaid the capitals, and made bands for them. The offering of bronze was 70 talents, and 2,400 shekels. And with it he made the sockets for the door of the tent of the appointed times, the bronze altar, the bronze grating for it, and all the utensils for the altar. The sockets for the court all around, the bases for the court gate, all the pegs for the tent, and all the pegs for the court all around. Please note about the ministering women. Most people think that women are not allowed to minister to the children of Israel, as in congregations today. However, this is not true. These women that were standing at the door of the tent of the appointed times were ministering to the children of Israel in order how to operate. Therefore, looking at that particular scenario, it is quite apparent that women are allowed to be part of the ministry and to be able to teach the children of Israel, provided they have a covering, such as a husband or a rabbi. And a note. Chapter 39. Of the blue, purple, and scarlet thread they made garments for ministering in the set-apart place, and made the set-apart garments for Aaron, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. He made the ephod of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen. And they beat the gold into thin sheets, and cut it into threads, to work it in with the blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and the fine linen, into artistic designs. They made shoulder straps for it to couple it together. It was coupled together at its two edges, and the intricately woven band of his ephod that was on it was of the same workmanship, woven of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. And they set onyx stones enclosed in settings of gold. They were engraved as signets are engraved with the names of the sons of Israel. He put them on the shoulders of the ephod, that they should be stones for a memorial for the sons of Israel, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. And he made the breastplate artistically woven, like the workmanship of the ephod, of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen. They made the breastplate squarely by doubling it. A span was its length, and a span its width when doubled. And they set it in 4 rows of stones, a row with the sardius, a topaz, and an emerald was the first row. The second row, a turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond. The third row, a jacinth, and a agate, and an amethyst. The fourth row, a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. They were enclosed in settings of gold in their mountings. There were 12 stones according to the names of the sons of Israel, according to their names, engraved like a signet, each one with his own name, according to the 12 tribes. And they made chains for the breastplate at the ends, like braided cords of pure gold. He also made 2 settings of gold, and 2 gold rings, and put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. And they put the 2 braided chains of gold in the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate. The 2 ends of the 2 braided chains they fastened in the 2 settings, and put them on the shoulder straps of the ephod in the front. And they made 2 rings of gold, and put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate, on the edge of it, which was on the inner side of the ephod. They made 2 other gold rings, and put them on the 2 shoulder straps underneath the ephod, toward its front, right at the seam, above the intricately woven band of the ephod. And they bound the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the ephod with a blue cord, so that it would be above the intricately woven band of the ephod, and that the breastplate would not come loose from the ephod, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. He made the robe of the ephod of woven work all of blue, and there was an opening in the middle of the robe, like the opening in a coat of mail, with a woven binding all around the opening, so that it would not tear. They made on the hem of the robe pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet, and of fine woven linen. And they made bells of pure gold, and put the bells between the pomegranates on the hem of the robe all around between the pomegranates. A bell and a pomegranate all around the hem of the robe to minister in, as Yahweh has commanded Musa. They made tunics, artistically woven of fine linen for Aaron and his sons, a turban of fine linen, exquisite turbans of fine linen, short trousers of fine woven linen, and a sash of fine woven linen with blue, purple, and scarlet thread, made by a weaver, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. Then they made the plate of the set-apart crown of pure gold, and wrote on it an inscription like the engraving of a signet, set apartness to Yahweh. And they tied to it a blue cord, to fasten it above on the turban, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. Thus all the work of the tent of appointments was finished. And the children of Israel did according to all that Yahweh had commanded Musa, so they did. And they brought the tent to Musa, the tent and all its furnishings, its clasps, its boards, its bars, its pillars, and its sockets, the covering of ram skins dyed red, the covering of blue skins, and the veil of the covering, the ark of the testimony with its poles, and the lid of atonement, the table, all its utensils, and the lachem panaim, bread of faces, the pure menorah with its lamps, the lamps set in order, all its utensils, and the oil for light, the gold altar, the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, the screen for the tent door. The bronze altar is great of bronze, its poles, and all its utensils, the laver with its base, the hangings of the court, its pillars, and its sockets, the screen for the court gate, its cords, and its pegs, all the utensils for the service of the tent, for the tent of appointments, and the garments of ministry to minister in the set-apart place. The set-apart garments were Aaron the Kohen, and his sons' garments to minister as Kohanim, according to all that Yahweh had commanded Musa. So the children of Israel did all the work. Then Musa looked over all the work, and indeed they had done it as Yahweh had commanded. Just so they had done it, and Musa spoke increases to them. Chapter 40. Then Yahweh spoke to Musa, saying, On the first day of the first month, you shall set up the tent of appointments. You shall put in it the ark of the testimony, and partition off the ark with the veil. You shall bring in the table, and arrange the things that are to be set in order on it, and you shall bring in the menorah, and light its lamps. You shall also set the altar of gold for the incense before the ark of the testimony, and put up the hanging for the door of the tent. Then you shall set the altar of the burnt offering before the door of the tent of appointments, and you shall set the laver between the tent of the appointed times and the altar, and put ma'im in it. You shall set up the court all around, and hang up the hangings at the court gate. You shall take the anointing oil, and anoint the tent, and all that is in it. And you shall set apart all its utensils, and it shall be set apart. You shall anoint the altar of the burnt offering, and all its utensils, and set apart the altar. The altar shall be most set apart. And you shall anoint the laver and its base, and set it apart. Then you shall bring Aaron and his sons to the door of the tent of the appointed times, and wash them with ma'im. You shall put the set-apart garments on Aaron, and anoint him, and set him apart, that he may minister to me as Kohen. And you shall bring his sons, and clothe them with tunics. You shall anoint them, as you anointed their father, that they may minister to me as Kohanim, for their anointing shall surely be an everlasting priesthood throughout their generations. Then Musa did according to all that Yahweh had commanded him, so he did. And it came to pass in the first month of the second year, on the first day of the month, that the tent was raised up. So Musa raised up the tent, fastened its sockets, set up its boards, put in its bars, and raised up its pillars. And he spread out the tent over the tent, and put the covering of the tent on top of it, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. He took the testimony, and put it into the ark, inserted the poles through the rings of the ark, and put the lid of atonement on top of the ark. And he brought the ark into the tent, hung up the veil of the covering, and partitioned of the ark of the testimony, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. He put the table in the tent of the appointed times on the north side of the tent, outside the veil. And he set the lachem in order upon it before Yahweh, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. He put the menorah in the tent of the appointed times, across from the table on the south side of the tent. And he lit the lamps before Yahweh, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. He put the gold altar in the tent of the appointed times, in front of the veil. And he burned sweet incense on it, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. He hung up the hanging at the door of the tent, and he put the altar of burnt offering before the door of the tent of appointments, and offered up it the burnt offering and the grain offering, as Yahweh had commanded Musa. He set the laver between the tent of the appointed times and the altar, and put ma'im there for washing. And Musa, Aaron, and his sons would wash their hands and their feet with ma'im from it. Whenever they went into the tent of the appointed times, And when they came near the altar, they washed as Yahweh had commanded Musa. And he raised up the court all around the tent and the altar, and hung the hangings of the court gate. So Musa finished the work. Then the cloud covered the tent of the appointed times, and the esteem of Yahweh filled the tent. And Musa was not able to enter the tent of the appointed times, because the cloud rested above it, and the esteem of Yahweh filled the tent. When the cloud was taken up from above the tent, the children of Israel went onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not journey till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of Yahweh was above the tent by day, and fire was over it by night, in the sight of all the Beit of Israel throughout all their journeys.